The desert is vast, silent, and unforgiving. But on its endless highways, the living aren't always alone. Across the American Southwest, there are roads haunted by spirits, tragedies, and unexplained phenomena, from ghostly hitchhikers appearing out of nowhere, to phantom vehicles racing alongside travelers, to strange lights dancing across empty highways. These haunted desert roads remind us that some journeys never truly end. Tonight, we explore 25 of the most haunted highways in the American desert, where the past, the paranormal, and the unforgiving landscape collide in chilling ways. Route 66, stretching across the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico, has long been celebrated as the Mother Road, a symbol of freedom, adventure, and the American spirit. But beneath the neon signs and dusty highways lies a darker legacy. For decades, travelers along these remote stretches have reported encounters that defy explanation, experiences that linger in memory long after the miles have passed. Many speak of ghostly travelers, mysterious lights, and phantom vehicles that haunt the road, creating a sense of unease that even the most seasoned drivers cannot ignore. On quiet nights, especially when the wind blows across the barren desert and the horizon seems to stretch endlessly, some drivers claim to see figures along the roadside. At first, these travelers appear ordinary people, hitchhiking, standing with a backpack, or waving down passing cars. But as vehicles draw closer, the figures vanish, leaving only the emptiness of the desert behind. Witnesses often report a lingering sense of being watched, a chill crawling across their skin despite the desert heat. These ghostly travelers are described as fleeting and ephemeral, sometimes stepping onto the road for a heartbeat before disappearing entirely. Mysterious lights have also become synonymous with Route 66's haunted reputation. Drivers report seeing bright flashes or glowing orbs in stretches of road where no towns or cars are nearby. Some lights move erratically, darting across lanes or hovering over the pavement. Others appear in the distance as headlights, approaching fast, only to vanish when the observer tries to focus. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that these lights may be residual energy from tragic accidents that occurred along the route, where countless lives were lost in collisions or sudden desert storms. Local legends say that these orbs often serve as warnings, guiding travelers away from danger or luring them toward it. Phantom vehicles are another common phenomenon reported by Route 66 travelers. Many drivers recount seeing cars, trucks, or motorcycles appearing behind them on deserted stretches, traveling at impossible speeds, or following without turning their headlights on. When drivers attempt to signal, pass, or avoid these phantom vehicles, they vanish without a trace. Some travelers report feeling their own vehicles being pushed or shaken, as if an invisible force were attempting to force them off the road. Others have experienced their radios turning on spontaneously, static-filled voices whispering words that cannot be understood. These encounters leave a sense of dread that often lingers long after the journey ends. The history of Route 66 may offer clues to these ghostly happenings. Opened in 1926, the highway quickly became a lifeline for migrants, travelers, and truckers moving westward during the Dust Bowl era. Countless accidents, robberies, and unexplained disappearances occurred along the route, and some researchers suggest that the tragic energy of those who suffered or died has left a spectral imprint. Over the decades, abandoned motels, diners, and gas stations have become hotspots for paranormal activity, with reports of doors opening and closing on their own, shadowy figures peering through broken windows, and cold gusts sweeping across empty floors. Travelers report seeing these abandoned locations lit briefly at night, as if welcoming or warning passersby. One popular account involves a lone trucker driving through New Mexico on a moonless night. He reported seeing a young man standing by the side of the road, thumb raised, waiting for a ride. The trucker slowed, and as he approached, the man's face appeared pale and distant, his features blurred. As the trucker reached the spot where he had been standing, the man vanished completely. The trucker later learned that a hitchhiker had died in that exact location decades earlier. Such stories are not isolated. Numerous travelers have reported seeing figures from the past, frozen in time, replaying moments of despair or hope along the open highway. The ghostly phenomena are not limited to human apparitions. Some travelers report hearing phantom engines, tires squealing, and horn blasts echoing across the desert, even when no vehicles are present. These sounds often accompany the sighting of spectral trucks or cars, racing at impossible speeds along empty stretches. Drivers describe an overwhelming sense of urgency, as if the spirits behind the wheel are attempting to communicate or chase them. Many pull over, their hearts pounding, only to find the road completely deserted, with no evidence of the vehicles they saw moments before. Fluctuations in temperature, sudden cold spots, and inexplicable malfunctions in vehicles are also common among those traveling at night. Radios flicker between static and faint music, GPS devices lose signal, and headlights dim unexpectedly. Paranormal investigators believe these anomalies may be connected to the residual energy left by past tragedies, magnified by the isolation and desolation of the desert. The vast emptiness of Route 66, combined with a long history of human hardship and travel, creates the perfect environment for these eerie occurrences. Even today, Route 66 retains its reputation as a haunted road. Ghost hunters and thrill seekers often embark on late-night drives, hoping to witness the unexplainable firsthand. While some encounters may have rational explanations, the consistency of reports across decades lends credibility to the legends. Ghostly travelers, flashing lights, phantom vehicles, and unexplained sounds persist as a reminder that some roads carry more than just the weight of tires and travelers. They carry memories, tragedies, and spirits that refuse to fade. For those who journey along Route 66 at night, the highway is no longer just a route across the desert. It is a corridor between the living and the dead, where the past whispers through the wind and shadows move just beyond the headlights. Many travelers learn to drive cautiously, respecting the unknown and remaining alert for sudden movements along the road. Ghostly figures may appear at any turn, warning, guiding, or simply observing, leaving behind an indelible sense of mystery. The legend of Route 66 endures, a haunting reminder that even America's most iconic highways can hold secrets that defy explanation, and that some travelers may never truly drive alone. The Mother Road stretches endlessly, and with each passing night, the ghostly travelers, mysterious lights, and phantom vehicles continue to roam, unseen, but ever present, leaving only stories and lingering chills for those who dare to traverse its haunted path. Highway 395 cuts a lonely path through the California desert, stretching for miles where the horizon melts into the sun-baked earth. By day, it is a road of stark beauty, lined with rugged mountains and endless stretches of sand and sagebrush. But as night falls, locals and travelers alike have reported experiences that defy explanation. Occurrences that have earned this stretch of road a reputation as one of California's most haunted highways. Figures in vintage clothing, unexplained patches of fog, and disembodied voices make traveling Highway 395 after dark a chilling proposition for those who dare to venture alone. The first reports of ghostly figures began decades ago. Drivers have described seeing men and women dressed in attire from the 1920s and 1930s. Walking along the shoulder of the highway. Some appeared to be strolling casually, as if lost in thought, while others seemed to pace nervously, glancing toward approaching vehicles. As drivers slow to offer help or pass cautiously, the figures vanish, leaving no trace on the desert sands. One frequent traveler reported slowing down after seeing a woman in a long dress standing by a faded signpost. He blinked, and in an instant, she had disappeared, as if she had been folded into the night itself. These apparitions are described as ethereal and almost translucent, yet startlingly detailed, their expressions frozen between longing and despair. Accompanying the spectral figures are patches of fog that appear seemingly out of nowhere. In the desert, where humidity is low and the air is usually dry, the sudden appearance of mist or fog is unusual enough to be alarming. Locals say these fog patches often linger around the figures, cloaking them in a shroud of white that seems to shift and move with a mind of its own. Vehicles driving through these mists report sudden drops in temperature, condensation forming on windshields in the middle of summer, and headlights illuminating only the swirling vapor while the road ahead remains empty. Witnesses have recounted feeling a sense of being watched, a prickling unease that persists long after the fog lifts and the figures disappear. Perhaps the most unnerving phenomena along Highway 395 are the disembodied voices. Travelers have reported hearing their names called from the darkness, sometimes from one side of the road, sometimes echoing from multiple directions. The voices vary in tone, from urgent whispers to distant cries, often sounding like they come from just beyond the edge of the headlights. One driver recounted hearing a familiar voice calling his name repeatedly as he rounded a bend, only to find the road deserted and the desert silent. Other reports describe fragmented sentences, warnings, or desperate pleas, seemingly impossible to comprehend, yet unmistakably human. Paranormal investigators suggest that these voices may be residual echoes from accidents, disappearances, or moments of intense emotion that occurred along this historic route. Historical records provide some insight into why Highway 395 might be a hotspot for paranormal activity. The route has long been a vital corridor for travel through the eastern Sierra region, with a history of mining, railroad expansion, and small desert settlements. Accidents, sudden storms, and the harsh desert environment claimed many lives over the decades. Locals believe that some of the spirits from these tragedies remain tied to the road, appearing to travelers as if trapped between the world of the living and the past. Abandoned gas stations, old motels, and forgotten settlements along the highway are frequent settings for encounters where headlights sometimes reveal figures vanishing into the darkness or the faint glow of lanterns in windows that have long since been boarded up. One notable account involved a couple driving late at night through a particularly desolate stretch near the Owens Valley. The woman spotted a man in an old uniform walking alongside the road, his posture rigid and his gaze fixed straight ahead. When they slowed, the man raised a hand as if signaling them to stop, but the moment their headlights fully illuminated him, he disappeared. Moments later, the car passed through a patch of thick fog that seemed to swirl violently around them. Cold air filled the vehicle, and the radio, which had been off, crackled to life, with static-filled whispers calling the woman's name repeatedly. Both passengers felt an overwhelming fear, and when they finally reached a populated area, the temperature inside the car returned to normal, yet the sense of being followed lingered for days. Another traveler reported encountering a small group of figures in vintage clothing walking along the shoulder near an abandoned rest stop. The figures appeared to vanish into thin air as he approached. Later, he returned during daylight hours, hoping to find the location, only to discover that the rest stop had been deserted for decades, with crumbling walls and rusted signage, relic of the past, frozen in time. Such stories are common among those who brave Highway 395 at night, creating a tapestry of legends and unexplained encounters that persist along the desert road. Paranormal researchers visiting Highway 395 often document sudden temperature drops, electromagnetic fluctuations, and inexplicable recordings on audio devices. Some capture images or video showing faint, ghostly figures in areas where no one is present. Others report instruments malfunctioning inexplicably as they traverse the road, with cameras and recorders freezing or erasing footage. Despite scientific attempts to explain these occurrences, the consistency of eyewitness accounts over decades adds a compelling layer to the highway's haunted reputation. Highway 395 is a road of contrasts, stark beauty during the day and eerie isolation at night. Travelers who journey along it are cautioned to respect the unexplained, to remain alert, and to recognize that the desert holds memories that are not easily forgotten. The ghostly figures, the mysterious fog, and the voices calling names are enduring reminders that some roads carry more than asphalt. In gravel they carry echoes of the past and spirits that continue to linger, silently observing, forever bound to the desolate stretches of Highway 395. For those driving alone after dark, the highway is more than just a path through the desert. It's a corridor between worlds, where the living and the dead brush against each other. Many travelers report that once they have driven these haunted stretches, they are forever changed, aware that the spirits of the past walk the road alongside them, hidden just beyond the edge of the headlights, waiting silently for the next traveler to appear. Highway 50 in Nevada stretches endlessly across the barren landscape, earning the ominous nickname, the loneliest road in America. By day, it is a remote route lined with desert plains, distant mountains, and the occasional abandoned building. But after dark, travelers report experiences that transform this desolate highway into one of the country's most haunted roads. Ghostly hitchhikers, phantom vehicles, and inexplicable cold spots have been reported by countless motorists over the decades, creating a reputation that draws thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts alike. The most common accounts involve ghostly hitchhikers appearing out of nowhere along the highway. Drivers recount seeing men, women, or even children standing alone on the roadside, their clothing appearing out of step with modern fashion. Often, these figures seem tired or distressed, silently gesturing for a ride. Many who stop describe a brief, unnerving encounter. The hitchhiker climbs into the car, gives no explanation, and remains perfectly still during the ride. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, the figure vanishes from the back seat or front passenger area, leaving the driver shocked and confused. One motorist reported picking up a young woman wearing an old-fashioned dress. She sat quietly, staring ahead, her hands folded in her lap. Moments later, when he glanced back to ask a question, the seat was empty. The highway stretched empty in front of him, and the woman was gone, leaving behind only a chilling coldness that lingered in the car. In addition to ghostly passengers, many travelers describe phantom vehicles following them for miles. These spectral cars often appear in rearview mirrors, headlights glowing faintly in the distance, yet they cannot be caught. Attempts to pass or signal the vehicles fail. When the driver finally stops or turns a corner, the phantom car disappears without a trace. Some reports detail entire convoys of ghostly trucks, headlights flickering along empty stretches, as if shadowy drivers are reenacting a journey from decades past. The car's engines make no sound, yet the presence is palpable. A heavy, unseen weight that seems to push the living travelers to keep moving, to not stop and linger on the road. Cold spots are another common phenomenon, reported along Highway 50, in the middle of the desert, where nighttime temperatures can drop naturally. Witnesses describe sudden, localized drops in temperature that are inexplicably intense, sometimes forming icy pockets inside the vehicle itself. Drivers often report feeling an unnerving chill, as if someone or something unseen is brushing against them or filling the car with a tangible sense of dread. Electronic devices sometimes fail in these areas. Radios emit static, headlights flicker, and GPS units lose signal entirely. Witnesses describe feeling an oppressive presence, as if the highway itself is alive with the memories of those who have suffered or perished along its stretches. In the 1800s, travelers along these roads faced harsh desert conditions, limited water, and the threat of bandits. Stagecoach passengers and early motorists alike sometimes vanished without a trace. Ghost towns along the route bear silent witness to lives lost or abandoned, and locals speculate that some spirits have never left the road. Abandoned gas stations, decaying motels, and skeletal structures dot the landscape, becoming stages for eerie sightings. Travelers passing these ruins at night report seeing shadowy figures lingering near old windows or doors, watching silently before vanishing as if dissolving into the desert air. One particularly chilling account involved a truck driver making a late-night run across the desert. He noticed a lone man in a tattered coat waving for a ride along a particularly desolate stretch. Despite the isolation, the driver slowed and offered the man a seat. The hitchhiker climbed in silently. 4 miles, they drove without a word, and the driver felt an oppressive coldness in the cabin. When he glanced at the passenger, the man's face was pale, expressionless, and impossibly still. At the next curve, the trucker looked back again, and the seat was empty. The only evidence of the encounter was a lingering frost on the seat and the smell of cold desert air, heavier than the surrounding night. Other travelers report seeing spectral lights moving across the highway or catching glimpses of vehicles from decades past, recreated in uncanny detail. Some phantom cars are said to be vintage automobiles with headlights that flicker like candle flames. Others are trucks that appear rusted or incomplete, yet fully animated. Many motorists recount the feeling of being watched as these phantom vehicles shadow their every turn. Yet whenever they stop or investigate, there is nothing to be found. Paranormal investigators often document similar phenomena: sudden temperature drops, EMF spikes, and recordings of faint whispers or ghostly engine sounds on electronic devices. Some have captured fleeting images of figures along the roadside, their forms blurred but unmistakably human. The consistency of these reports across decades lends credibility to the haunting, suggesting that the spirits encountered are not random but tied to the history of the road itself. Highway 50, with its sweeping vistas and unbroken stretches of solitude, is a place where the past and present intersect unnervingly. Ghostly hitchhikers, phantom vehicles, and unexplained cold spots serve as reminders that some roads carry more than just travelers. They carry the echoes of those who have suffered, disappeared, or died along their path. Nighttime drivers report feeling an invisible presence, an awareness that the road is being watched, and that they are not truly alone on this endless stretch of asphalt. Those brave enough to drive Highway 50 after dark are advised to remain vigilant, to respect the unseen, and to be aware that the lonely road may be anything but empty. Many who have experienced the hauntings describe a lingering fear that persists even after reaching safety. A haunting reminder that the loneliest road is a corridor, not only through the desert, but through the restless shadows of its past. Travelers are warned. The road is open, the asphalt stretches ahead, but the spirits that haunt it are always moving, waiting for the next lonely driver to appear. Route 191 stretches through the remote deserts of Utah, a lonely highway surrounded by vast stretches of sand, red rock formations, and the occasional abandoned settlement. By day, it offers breathtaking views of rugged canyons and desert plateaus. But by night, the highway transforms into a place of mystery and unease. Locals and travelers alike have reported strange occurrences for decades, claiming that Route 191 is haunted by the echoes of past accidents and lost souls wandering the desolate landscape. One of the most common phenomena reported along Route 191 is the appearance of shadowy figures crossing the road. Drivers recount seeing human-like silhouettes stepping into their headlights as they navigate the dark stretches of asphalt. These figures often vanish the instant a vehicle approaches or swerves, leaving the driver startled and alone. One traveler reported swerving to avoid a figure dressed in vintage clothing, only to realize moments later that no one had been there, and the desert floor remained undisturbed. Phantom headlights are another unsettling feature of Route 191. Drivers at night often claim to see the bright glow of vehicles approaching from a distance, only for the lights to disappear as they draw nearer. In some instances, the lights seem to follow for miles, mimicking the curves and turns of the road, yet no car or truck is ever seen. Occasionally, witnesses describe vintage vehicles, old sedans, pickup trucks, or stagecoach-like shapes traveling the road silently, their headlights flickering as if struggling to penetrate the darkness. The effect is disorienting, causing some motorists to doubt their own eyes. But the consistency of the reports lends credibility to the supernatural nature of these sightings. Whispers are also frequently reported along Route 191, carried on the desert wind or appearing suddenly inside vehicles. Drivers recount hearing faint voices, often warning them to slow down or be careful. Some claim to hear names being called, or fragmented phrases like "turn back," "don't go," or "stop now," as though the spirits are attempting to communicate urgent messages. The whispers can be soft at first, growing louder and more insistent as travelers continue down the highway, sometimes coinciding with the appearance of shadowy figures or phantom lights. Many report a lingering sense of unease even after leaving the road, a chilling reminder that the desert holds memories of those who never made it through. Historical accounts suggest that Route 191 has witnessed its share of tragedy. Decades of accidents, sudden desert storms, and the isolation of the terrain have contributed to countless fatalities and disappearances. Abandoned vehicles, weathered signage, and remnants of roadside structures dot the landscape, often serving as anchors for the spirits said to haunt the area. Paranormal enthusiasts believe that these energies linger, attached to the road itself, and that travelers unwittingly enter a corridor between the living world and the remnants of the past. One particularly chilling story involves a young couple driving along the road late at night. They reported seeing a man walking in the center of the highway, illuminated by their headlights. Hesitant, but concerned, the driver slowed, but as they approached, the figure stepped aside and seemed to glide above the ground. Suddenly, the couple heard faint whispers urging them to stop, accompanied by a cold rush of air that swept through the car. When they looked again, the man had vanished, leaving the couple shaken and questioning whether they had encountered a ghost or a hallucination induced by isolation and darkness. Other travelers recount near collisions with phantom vehicles, only to find the road empty moments later. In some cases, the vehicles appear to behave as if they are replaying events from decades ago, echoing accidents or abandoned deliveries from a bygone era. Lights flare in the distance, brake lights glow without a source, and the hum of an engine can be heard even when there is no car. These encounters are often accompanied by a sense of being watched, as if unseen eyes are following the vehicle along the highway, tracking every turn and movement. Paranormal investigators visiting Route 191 often document temperature anomalies, EMF spikes, and unexplained sounds recorded on night vision cameras and audio equipment. Footsteps, faint breathing, and whispers are frequently captured in areas that appear completely empty. Many investigators have reported a feeling of oppressive energy, an emotional weight that intensifies in the dead of night, reinforcing the idea that the highway is a conduit for spirits bound to the memories of past tragedies. For those brave enough to drive Route 191 after dark, the highway demands respect. Witnesses advise keeping headlights on, driving slowly, and being prepared for the unexpected. The desert stretches endlessly in all directions, and the isolation can amplify the sensation of being followed or watched. Shadowy figures, phantom headlights, and whispers seem to be more active in areas where accidents were historically frequent, suggesting that certain spots along the road hold stronger residual energies. Route 191 is more than a lonely desert highway. It is a living repository of memory and tragedy. The ghostly travelers, spectral vehicles, and unseen voices serve as reminders that the past never fully disappears. Those who traverse its dark stretches are reminded that the road is haunted not just by shadows, but by the lingering presence of lives interrupted and journeys never completed. The desert air carries the weight of history, and the lonely highway continues to test the courage of anyone who dares to drive its haunted path. Travelers leave Route 191 with stories they cannot easily explain. The shadows in the headlights, the whispers in the wind, and the ghostly movements across the asphalt linger in memory, a chilling testament to the highway's restless spirits. The road may be paved and maintained, but its history is etched into the night, waiting for the next motorist to encounter the unseen travelers who haunt the lonely stretches of Utah desert. Highway 93 cuts through the rugged deserts and mountains of Arizona, a winding road known for its long stretches of isolation and breathtaking scenery. By day, it is a route frequented by travelers seeking the raw beauty of the Southwest. But by night, the highway has become the setting for tales that defy explanation. Locals and long-haul travelers alike have reported strange phenomena, claiming that Highway 93 is haunted by restless spirits, phantom vehicles, and eerie lights that appear and disappear without warning. One of the most common reports along Highway 93 involves ghostly bikers. Drivers recount seeing motorcyclists speeding along the road at impossible velocities, their engines silent yet leaving a faint trail of heat or shimmer in the air. The bikers often wear vintage-style helmets and leather, appearing as if they have ridden straight out of a bygone era. Witnesses describe the figures weaving dangerously close to cars, only to vanish when approached, leaving no tire marks or skid trails behind. In some accounts, these phantom bikers seem to challenge travelers, accelerating alongside them for miles before suddenly dissipating into thin air. Strange lights are another frequent occurrence. Drivers report seeing glowing orbs hovering above the asphalt, moving erratically, or appearing in the distance like oncoming headlights. These lights often vanish the moment a vehicle draws near, sometimes leaving a lingering mist or a sudden chill in the air. Some witnesses describe lights that mimic the shapes of cars or motorcycles, but when the road is inspected afterward, no tire tracks or signs of passage are found. In a few cases, travelers have seen entire ghostly convoys moving along the highway, shimmering in the darkness, and disappearing as if swallowed by the night itself. Figures standing in the middle of the highway are among the most unnerving experiences reported. Drivers have recounted encountering human-like silhouettes that remain motionless, often positioned on curves or elevated stretches where visibility is low. Approaching these figures, motorists sometimes notice they appear partially transparent or flickering, and just as quickly as they were seen, they vanish, leaving the road completely empty. Several witnesses have described feeling a sudden, oppressive sense of dread when encountering these apparitions, a chilling sensation that lingers long after the figures disappear. Historical context may offer some explanation for the hauntings. Highway 93 traverses regions that have seen countless accidents over the decades, as well as areas historically frequented by travelers, prospectors, and bikers. Locals suggest that the spirits of those who perished along the road are unable to find rest, trapped by sudden deaths or unfinished journeys. The desert and mountainous terrain amplifies the isolation, making travelers feel particularly vulnerable to supernatural encounters. Even those familiar with the road report that certain stretches are more active than others, suggesting that residual energy may concentrate around sites of past tragedies. One well-known account involves a trucker driving a cargo rig late at night. He reported seeing a group of bikers racing along the center line, engines silent but bodies moving with fluid precision. As he attempted to slow down, the bikers drew closer, weaving around his rig with impossible agility. When he braked to a stop, the bikers vanished completely, leaving the trucker shaken. Moments later, his radio crackled with static, and a faint whisper seemed to say, "Keep moving," though no one else was in the cab. The trucker's story is one of many that highlight the unpredictable and often interactive nature of the phenomena on Highway 93. Paranormal investigators who have explored the highway at night often report similar experiences. EMF meters spike in certain locations, cameras capture unexplained streaks of light, and thermographic equipment registers sudden cold spots that appear and vanish without explanation. Footsteps, muffled voices, and engine-like sounds are frequently recorded along stretches where no vehicles or pedestrians are present. Many investigators describe a sensation of being followed or observed, even when the highway appears completely empty, reinforcing the idea that the road is imbued with restless energies. Some travelers claim that the ghostly bikers and figures may not always be malicious, but rather restless spirits seeking to relive their final rides. Others, however, report a more menacing presence, describing feelings of being pushed off the road, shadows darting across the lane, and lights deliberately attempting to distract or confuse drivers. Witnesses agree on one thing: the highway is unpredictable at night, and those unfamiliar with its history may be unprepared for the intensity of the encounters. Despite the dangers, Highway 93 continues to draw thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts, eager to witness the supernatural activity firsthand. Those who venture onto the road after dark are advised to drive cautiously, remain alert for sudden apparitions, and respect the eerie atmosphere. The desert winds carry whispers of the past, and the stretches of asphalt seem to echo with the lives of travelers long gone. For those who have driven the road at night, the experiences leave lasting impressions. Phantom bikers, glowing orbs, and shadowy figures standing in the center of the highway are not easily forgotten. Many claim that even after leaving the area, the sensations of being watched or followed linger, A chilling reminder that Highway 93 is more than a desert roadway, is a corridor between the living and the spectral echoes of the past. Highway 93 remains a place where history, tragedy, and the unexplained converge. The ghostly bikers racing at impossible speeds, the vanishing lights, and the silhouettes that appear and disappear in an instant serve as constant reminders that the highway is haunted. Travelers who pass through are not just navigating the asphalt, they are traversing a landscape where the past refuses to remain buried, and the spirits of those lost continue to roam the lonely stretches of the Arizona desert. Highway 95 stretches across the vast deserts of Nevada, a long, isolated road that connects small towns, mining communities, and military outposts. By day, it is a quiet highway, often empty except for the occasional truck or traveler. By night, however, Highway 95 transforms into a place of eerie encounters, where reality seems to bend and the unexplained becomes disturbingly real. Countless travelers have reported phenomena along this desert stretch, describing ghostly vehicles, shadowy figures, and sounds that defy explanation. One of the most unsettling reports involves phantom car collisions. Drivers recount moments when another vehicle suddenly appears in their headlights, sometimes moving erratically, as if out of control. Moments later, they witness a crashed tire squealing, metal bending, but when they reach the location, there is no wreckage, no debris, and no other vehicle. The experience is so vivid that witnesses often report their own adrenaline surging, hearts racing as if they had narrowly escaped disaster. Some describe seeing the phantom vehicles fade into thin air, leaving only tire tracks in the sand that vanish minutes later. Shadowy figures walking along the desert stretches of Highway 95 are another common phenomenon. Travelers report seeing human-like silhouettes standing on the shoulder or in the middle of the lane, motionless and eerily still. These figures often appear in dark clothing, sometimes wearing hats or coats reminiscent of decades past. Approaching them, drivers notice that the figures do not move or react to the headlights, and when they attempt to slow down or stop, the silhouettes vanish entirely, leaving the road empty. Witnesses often describe a chilling sensation when encountering these figures, a feeling of being watched, or even followed, that persists long after the sighting. Unexplained engine noises are also reported frequently along Highway 95. Drivers claim to hear the roar of engines, the squeal of brakes, and the shifting of gears, even when the road is completely empty. In some cases, the sounds come from vehicles that are visible only as vague shapes or shadows in the distance, while in others the noises are so realistic that travelers instinctively check mirrors and shoulders, convinced another car is behind them. Often, the sounds vanish as suddenly as they appear, leaving only the desert wind and the hum of their own vehicle. Historical context may shed light on some of these occurrences. Highway 95 runs through areas that were once heavily traveled during mining booms and along routes used by early settlers. Many accidents, some fatal, occurred on these stretches of road due to treacherous terrain, sudden weather changes, or mechanical failures. Some locals believe that the spirits of those who died on the highway are unable to find peace, manifesting as phantom vehicles and shadowy figures. The vast, empty desert amplifies the sense of isolation and heightens the perception of supernatural activity, making each encounter deeply unsettling. One well-known account involves a solo driver traveling late at night. He reported seeing headlights approaching rapidly in his lane, only to witness a collision that threw sparks and smoke into the air. Bracing for impact, he swerved, but the roadway remained clear. Upon checking his mirrors, he saw nothing but the empty desert stretching behind him. The driver later described a lingering sense of unease, convinced that the highway had shown him something not meant for the living. Stories like this are repeated by multiple travelers, creating a pattern of incidents that suggests the phenomena are not isolated. Paranormal investigators who have visited Highway 95 at night often report similar findings. Equipment frequently registers temperature drops in open desert areas. Cameras capture orbs and streaks of light, and EMF detectors spike without cause. Many reports feeling an unseen presence close by. hearing whispers or murmurs carried by the desert wind, and sensing movement around their vehicles when they are completely alone. Some investigators have even set up motion sensor cameras and captured blurred shapes resembling vehicles or figures, disappearing as quickly as they appeared. Despite the eerie reputation of Highway 95, travelers continue to drive its stretches, whether out of necessity or curiosity. Some thrill seekers are drawn to the highway to witness paranormal activity firsthand, while locals often warn newcomers about the strange occurrences after dark. Witnesses advise remaining vigilant, keeping headlights on, and driving cautiously, as the highway seems to favor those who are prepared to respect its spectral inhabitants. Some travelers believe the highway is a liminal space, where past tragedies are replayed endlessly in ghostly form. Phantom collisions, shadowy figures, and engine noises may be echoes of accidents and events long gone, yet they feel startlingly real to anyone who encounters them. Others suggest that the desert amplifies residual energy, making Highway 95 a hotspot for paranormal phenomena. Whatever the explanation, those who traverse the road after sunset agree that it is not simply a highway, it's a place where the past and present intertwine, and the living brush against the echoes of those who never left. Even those who have driven Highway 95 multiple times report being wary after nightfall. Phantom collisions, shadowy walkers, and mysterious engine sounds leave lasting impressions, reminding travelers that the desert is more than an empty expanse. Highway 95 is a corridor where tragedy, isolation, and the unexplained converge, creating experiences that defy reason and challenge the imagination. Drivers who pass through these stretches of Nevada are not just traveling from one town to another, they are moving through a landscape haunted by the restless echoes of the past, where the ordinary transforms into the uncanny, and the line between reality and the spectral world is disturbingly thin. The stories of Highway 95 serve as a warning and a fascination. Phantom vehicles appearing and disappearing, shadowy figures walking through the desert, and engine noises with no visible source suggest a highway alive with history, tragedy, and something far beyond ordinary experience. For those who venture along its stretches at night, the road becomes more than a route to cross. Nevada becomes a journey through a realm where the living and the spirits coexist, and the echoes of the past are never truly gone. Highway 160 stretches across the Nevada desert, a long, isolated road connecting small towns, open stretches of desert, and rugged mountain passes. By day, it is a quiet and uneventful route, often empty except for the occasional car or truck. By night, however, the highway becomes a place of uncanny experiences, where strange lights appear, figures emerge from the darkness, and footsteps echo across the asphalt with no visible source. Locals and travelers alike have reported encounters along Highway 160 that defy logical explanation, describing phenomena that suggest the desert itself harbors restless energy. One of the most common reports involves flashing orbs hovering over the road. Drivers often recount seeing bright lights suddenly appear ahead, sometimes moving slowly, sometimes darting across lanes at impossible speeds. The orbs vary in size and color, ranging from pale white glows to deep amber spheres, and many describe them as pulsating or flickering in rhythm, as if alive. When approached, the lights vanish instantly or seem to hover just above the desert surface, defying the laws of physics. Witnesses frequently describe a feeling of weightlessness or vertigo as the orbs pass, creating a sense of disorientation that can last long after the encounter. Figures standing in the sand beside Highway 160 are another unsettling phenomenon. Travelers report seeing human-like silhouettes emerging from dunes or standing motionless on the roadside, often wearing clothing that appears outdated, reminiscent of decades past. These figures are usually silent and completely still, yet drivers feel an intense sense of being watched. When attempts are made to slow down or stop to observe them more closely, the figures vanish into the darkness without leaving footprints or any trace. Many witnesses describe a cold chill or a sudden drop in temperature when these figures appear, heightening the feeling that something unnatural is at play. Phantom footsteps on the asphalt are another recurring experience. People traveling alone at night often report hearing footsteps behind or alongside their vehicles, echoing across the empty road. The sounds may be light and hurried, like someone running, or slow and deliberate, as if someone is pacing. These footsteps continue even when no other cars or pedestrians are present, and in many cases, drivers report that the sounds appear to follow them for miles before suddenly disappearing. Historical context lends insight into why Highway 160 might be prone to such activity. The road passes through areas that have seen decades of travel, mining expeditions, and trade routes, some of which ended tragically due to harsh desert conditions, vehicle breakdowns, or accidents. It is believed by some that the orbs, figures, and footsteps are manifestations of the spirits of those who met untimely ends along the road. The remoteness of the highway, combined with the vast open spaces, amplifies the eerie quality of these experiences, making each encounter feel intensely personal and inescapable. One particularly chilling account involves a solo traveler driving late at night. He reported seeing a cluster of glowing orbs hovering just above the road ahead. As he slowed, he noticed shadowy figures standing in the sand on both sides of the highway, motionless but appearing to watch him. The orbs blinked rapidly, illuminating the figures briefly before plunging the road back into darkness. The traveler reported that for several miles, he could hear footsteps echoing on the asphalt, though no other cars or people were nearby. The experience left him shaken, and he vowed never to drive that stretch of highway after sunset again. Paranormal teams who have investigated Highway 160 at night frequently report similar findings. EMF detectors spike in open stretches of the desert, cameras capture orbs and fleeting shadows, and temperature readings drop sharply in areas where figures and lights are reported. Many investigators have described a sensation of being followed or watched, even in the absence of any visible entities. Some have attempted to record the phantom footsteps with audio equipment, capturing faint sounds that appear out of nowhere and vanish without explanation. Local lore reinforces these reports. Residents tell stories of lost travelers appearing suddenly on the road, their eyes wide with fear, only to vanish when approached. Some claim that the flashing orbs are protective spirits, warning drivers of danger, while others believe they are residual energy from tragic events, repeating endlessly across the desert. Whether viewed as benevolent or malevolent, these phenomena have made Highway 160 a destination for both thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts, drawn by the promise of encountering the unexplained. Many who traverse Highway 160 after dark report a lingering unease, even when nothing appears. The combination of sudden flashes of light, figures standing silently in the sand, and phantom footsteps creates an atmosphere of constant tension. Witnesses often describe feeling eyes upon them, a sense that the desert is alive with energy, and that the past is reaching out through space and time. Even those who travel the road frequently admit that night driving here is an entirely different experience from daytime travel, where the heat of the sun and the wide-open landscape mask the uncanny nature of the highway. Despite its eerie reputation, Highway 160 remains a well-traveled route. Drivers are advised to exercise caution, stay alert, and respect the unknown. Many travelers report that they avoid stopping along the roadside after dark, choosing to drive straight through rather than investigate phenomena. For those who do encounter the orbs, shadowy figures, or phantom footsteps, the experience is unforgettable. Reminder that Highway 160 is not merely a road, but a stretch of desert alive with history, mystery, and the unexplained. Highway 160 serves as a corridor where time seems to blur. Ghostly lights hover without source. Figures appear and vanish in the desert sands, and footsteps echo along asphalt long after the travelers themselves have passed. For those who venture along this stretch of Nevada, the road is more than a path connecting towns. It is a place where the living brush against the spectral, where the remnants of past lives linger in the night, and where the ordinary rules of the natural world seem to fade away, leaving only uncertainty, awe, and the sense that the desert is watching. Highway 163 in southeastern Utah stretches across vast desert landscapes, cutting through red rock formations and open plains that seem to stretch endlessly toward the horizon. By day, it is a stunning route, drawing tourists to the iconic views of Monument Valley and the Navajo Nation lands it passes through. By night, however, this lonely highway takes on an entirely different character. Travelers who drive the road after dark report unsettling phenomena: ghostly travelers fading into the desert, strange lights hovering along the horizon, and whispers carried by the wind that seem to come from nowhere. These accounts have made Highway 163 one of the most talked about paranormal highways in the Southwest. One of the most common reports along Highway 163 involves ghostly travelers appearing along the roadside. Witnesses describe figures in vintage clothing, sometimes carrying suitcases or backpacks, standing silently at the edge of the pavement. When approached, these figures do not move or respond, and often fade into the desert air as if never there at all. Drivers report a sense of sudden unease when these figures appear, a shiver down the spine, or a feeling of being watched. Some claim the figures seem aware of their presence, glancing toward oncoming vehicles before disappearing into the sandy expanse. Another striking phenomenon reported along the highway is the appearance of strange lights. These are not typical headlights or reflective markers. They move in unnatural patterns, hovering or darting along the horizon, sometimes converging and splitting apart in ways that defy physics. Witnesses often describe the lights as soft glows, varying in color from pale white to deep amber or green. They may linger for several minutes, appearing to follow vehicles as they move down the road, only to vanish abruptly when approached. Paranormal investigators suggest that these lights may be residual energy from past travelers or manifestations of spirits tied to the land. The wind along Highway 163 adds to the eerie atmosphere, carrying whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Drivers report hearing faint voices calling names or repeating phrases, often just on the edge of understanding. The whispers are sometimes accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature, a coldness that creeps into the car and seems to linger even after leaving the area. Many describe the experience as both terrifying and mesmerizing, as though the highway itself is communicating messages from the past. Historical context adds depth to these paranormal accounts. Highway 163 runs through areas that were historically trade routes, cattle drives, and paths for early settlers. The harsh desert environment claimed lives through accidents, dehydration, and exposure, leaving behind untold stories of travelers who never reached their destinations. Some paranormal researchers believe the ghostly figures are echoes of these lost travelers, replaying their final moments along the road. The lights and whispers may be residual energy tied to the intense emotions and sudden deaths that occurred in this remote landscape. One particularly chilling account comes from a family driving through the highway at night. As they rounded a bend, they noticed a figure standing in the middle of the road, illuminated by the vehicle's headlights. The figure appeared to be a young man wearing clothes that seemed out of place for modern times. The father slowed the car and called out, but the figure did not respond. Moments later, as they reached his location, the man was gone, leaving the road empty and silent. Soon after, a series of soft lights appeared along the horizon, moving erratically, and the family reported hearing faint whispers through the wind that seemed to call their names. The experience left them shaken, and they vowed to never travel the highway after dark again. Paranormal investigators who have visited Highway 163 at night often report similar findings. EMF readings spike unpredictably, temperatures drop sharply in isolated stretches, and cameras frequently capture unexplained orbs of light. Many investigators note a sensation of being followed or observed, even when alone in the vast desert. Audio recordings sometimes pick up faint voices or murmurs that are not audible at the time of capture, reinforcing the belief that the highway is a conduit for unseen presences. Local lore reinforces the eerie reputation of the road. Stories passed down from residents speak of travelers appearing suddenly at the roadside, sometimes asking for help or directions, only to vanish before a response can be given. Some believe the lights serve as warnings for those who may be in danger, guiding them away from unseen hazards. Others claim the highway itself is alive with energy, retaining memories of those who passed through it in life and death, creating a layer of haunting that persists across generations. Many who travel Highway 163 at night report a lingering sense of unease, even if nothing immediately appears. The combination of sudden ghostly figures, inexplicable lights, and whispers in the wind creates an atmosphere of constant tension. Witnesses describe the highway as a place where the natural and supernatural overlap, where the silence of the desert amplifies the uncanny, and where time seems to blur. Even experienced travelers admit that night driving here is unlike any other desert road, as the open landscape and vast sky give little comfort against the unknown. Despite its ominous reputation, Highway 163 remains a vital route for both tourists and locals. Drivers are advised to exercise caution, remain alert, and respect the unknown. Many travelers report avoiding stopping along the roadside after dark, preferring to drive through the haunted stretches quickly rather than investigating. Those who do encounter ghostly travelers, mysterious lights, or whispers often describe the experience as unforgettable. A direct brush with the unexplained that leaves a lasting impression. Highway 163 is more than a scenic road through the Utah desert. It is a passage where the past meets the present in mysterious ways. Ghostly travelers appear and fade into the sands. Lights hover along the horizon without source, and whispers drift through the wind, carrying messages from another time. For those who venture down this isolated highway, the journey is not just one of miles and landscapes. It is a journey into a place where the ordinary world fades, leaving only the unknown, the uncanny, and the persistent feeling that the desert remembers. Highway 62, winding through the vast deserts of California, is a road that stretches for miles between barren landscapes, jagged mountains, and open skies. By day, it offers striking views of the desert terrain, dotted with Joshua trees and rocky outcrops. By night, however, the highway transforms into something far more sinister. Travelers who drive the road after dark frequently report seeing shadowy apparitions along the roadside, inexplicable lights in empty stretches, and distant voices calling out for help. These eerie experiences have earned Highway 62 a reputation as one of California's most haunted desert highways. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves ghostly figures appearing along the highway. Witnesses describe human shapes emerging suddenly from the desert sands, often near areas where accidents occurred decades ago. These figures are typically shadow-like, lacking clear features, and sometimes appear to be frozen in mid-step, as if replaying their final moments. Drivers report feeling an immediate chill when these apparitions appear, often accompanied by a sense of dread that compels them to speed past. Many claim the figures seem aware of their presence, turning to face approaching vehicles before vanishing without a trace. Another unsettling phenomenon involves strange lights along the highway. These are not ordinary headlights or vehicle reflections, but floating orbs or streaks of illumination that move independently. Witnesses describe the lights as hovering just above the asphalt or darting across the desert horizon, sometimes following vehicles at impossible speeds. They vary in color, from pale white to flickering red or green, and often appear in clusters, creating the illusion of multiple entities moving together. Some travelers report that these lights suddenly vanish when approached, leaving the road completely dark and silent, further intensifying the eerie atmosphere. Accompanying these visual manifestations are auditory disturbances. Travelers frequently hear faint cries or voices calling out from the desert, often repeating phrases like "help me" or "don't leave me." These sounds appear to come from specific spots along the road, sometimes close enough to suggest proximity, but when investigated, no source can be found. The whispers often carry a sense of urgency or panic, leaving drivers shaken and anxious. Some have even reported hearing multiple voices simultaneously, overlapping in a cacophony that seems to echo off the surrounding desert cliffs and hills. Historical context provides a chilling explanation for many of these reports. Highway 62 passes through areas that have long been the sites of vehicular accidents and isolated tragedies. In the early decades of the highway's use, its long, straight stretches and sudden desert fogs contributed to fatal crashes. Travelers lost to these accidents are believed by some to leave residual energy, replaying the fear and urgency of their final moments. Paranormal experts suggest that the shadowy figures seen along the highway may be manifestations of these lost souls, while the floating lights could represent lingering energy from the tragedies that occurred. A particularly chilling account comes from a couple driving late at night along a deserted stretch. As they navigated a narrow curve, a dark figure suddenly appeared on the side of the road. The man instinctively braked, but the figure remained motionless. Moments later, more lights appeared ahead, flickering and shifting unpredictably, illuminating the highway in an unnatural glow. The couple reported hearing faint cries in the wind, urging them to slow down, though the road ahead was completely empty. By the time they reached the area, both the figure and lights had vanished, leaving only silence and the eerie glow of the moon across the desert. The experience left them unnerved, with a lingering sense that the road was haunted by those who had never made it home. Paranormal investigators who have visited Highway 62 at night report similar encounters. EMF meters often spike along the deserted stretches, temperatures drop sharply without explanation, and cameras capture orbs or shadowy figures that vanish upon closer inspection. Many investigators describe feeling watched or followed, even when alone on the open road. Audio recordings sometimes pick up voices or cries that were inaudible at the time, reinforcing the highway's reputation as a site of supernatural activity. Local lore adds to the highway's reputation. Stories passed down from residents describe travelers appearing suddenly at the roadside, sometimes asking for help, only to vanish when approached. Some claim the lights serve as warnings, guiding those who may be in danger from hidden hazards or treacherous curves. Others believe the highway is a conduit for the souls of the lost, a place where energy from past tragedies lingers in the desert air, replaying events for those who dare to drive after dark. Even those who have never witnessed paranormal activity on Highway 62 report an unsettling atmosphere at night. The combination of isolation, endless stretches of road, and the knowledge of past accidents can make any traveler feel uneasy. Some report a sensation of being followed or observed, even when the road is completely empty. The vast desert amplifies every sound and shadow, transforming the ordinary into the uncanny and leaving drivers hyper-aware of every movement and light. Highway 62 is more than just a desert road. It is a corridor where past tragedies and lingering spirits intersect with the present. Shadowy figures appear and vanish along the roadside. Mysterious lights hover over empty stretches, and whispers drift across the sand, carrying messages from those who may have perished long ago. Travelers who venture down the highway at night often experience a mixture of fear and fascination, a sense that the highway itself remembers the lives lost along its path and seeks to remind the living of its haunted history. The road stretches on, silent and empty, but for those who pay attention, the desert is alive with echoes of the past. Interstate 10 stretches across the Arizona desert, a long, straight ribbon of asphalt cutting through arid terrain, cacti, and distant mountain ranges. By day, it is a highway of endless horizon and blazing sun. By night, however, the desert section of I-10 becomes something far more unsettling. Drivers traveling after dark have reported encounters with phantom semis, unexplained traffic jams, and ghostly figures wandering along the roadside. Experiences that have earned this stretch of Highway A reputation as one of Arizona's most haunted roadways. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves phantom trucks appearing suddenly in the lane ahead. Witnesses describe massive 18-wheelers materializing out of the darkness, sometimes moving at normal speeds, other times creeping as though deliberately blocking the road. The trucks often have no headlights or taillights, and when drivers try to pass or follow, the trucks vanish entirely. In some cases, travelers report that the road ahead becomes completely empty the moment they blink or glance away, leaving them to question whether what they saw was real. Many drivers recount a sudden drop in temperature when these trucks appear, accompanied by an inexplicable feeling of dread. Traffic anomalies are another strange occurrence along 1 to 10. Drivers have reported sudden traffic jams in the middle of deserted desert stretches, with vehicles ahead stopping without any visible cause. Even after carefully inspecting the highway, there is never any accident or obstruction to explain the slowdown. Some travelers describe the vehicles ahead as being occupied by indistinct, shadowy forms, or sometimes appearing completely empty. When they attempt to move around these phantom jams, the traffic seems to stretch endlessly, reappearing ahead despite detours or backtracking. For those caught in these moments, the highway feels like a maze, where the familiar rules of movement and distance no longer apply. Ghostly pedestrians are also frequently reported. Shadowy figures have been seen walking along the shoulder of the highway, sometimes crossing in front of vehicles and vanishing without a trace. Witnesses describe these figures as faint and semi-transparent, often in outdated clothing, as if they have stepped out of another era. Drivers who stop to investigate report feeling a sudden chill, hearing whispers in the wind, or sensing that they are being watched. Some figures seem to replay actions from past accidents, stepping into traffic, turning, and looking directly at the driver before fading into the desert night. Historical context provides chilling clues about these hauntings. Interstate 10's Arizona desert section has long been a site of deadly accidents, many involving trucks and long-haul vehicles. In the past, limited visibility, sudden desert storms, and long stretches of isolation contributed to fatal crashes. Paranormal experts theorize that the phantom semis and ghostly pedestrians are residual energies from these tragic events, reappearing along the road as echoes of past moments. Some researchers suggest that the unexplained traffic jams may be caused by temporal distortions, where the energy from past accidents interacts with the living, creating brief overlaps of reality. One particularly harrowing account comes from a solo driver heading west late at night. As he approached a stretch of desert just beyond Tucson, he noticed a large semi suddenly in his lane, moving without headlights. He swerved to avoid it, but the truck seemed to linger at the edge of his vision, impossible to bypass. Moments later, the vehicle disappeared, only to be replaced by a sudden line of cars ahead, completely blocking the road. He tried to stop and reverse, but the jam stretched for miles, the vehicles ahead completely still, as if frozen in time. He reported a feeling of icy fingers brushing his neck, and whispers carried on the desert wind, urging him forward. By the time he reached an open section of highway, the phantom trucks and traffic had vanished, leaving only the dark, empty desert. Investigators who have studied this section of I-10 report similar phenomena. EMF meters often spike along these stretches. Temperatures drop sharply without explanation, and video cameras sometimes capture fleeting shadows crossing lanes. Audio recordings occasionally reveal faint honks, engine roars, or whispered voices that are never audible during observation. Many investigators describe feeling watched or followed by unseen presences, even in the middle of open desert where no one else is present. These findings suggest a persistent supernatural energy linked both to the history of accidents on the highway and the psychological stress of long, isolated drives. Local lore reinforces the highway's haunted reputation. Stories tell of phantom trucks forcing drivers to brake suddenly, shadowy pedestrians appearing at crossroads, and strange lights moving along the desert horizon. Some say that the highway itself remembers those who perished along its stretches, replaying fragments of their last moments for the living. Others believe the apparitions act as warnings, manifestations meant to alert travelers to unseen dangers or to prevent repeat tragedies, whether protective or malevolent. The presence of these spectral phenomena is undeniable in the reports of those who have dared to drive the highway at night. Even those who have not personally encountered ghostly trucks or figures report an eerie sensation when driving along this desert stretch. The combination of isolation, long straightaways, and the knowledge of past accidents contributes to an atmosphere of tension and unease. Drivers often report heightened awareness of every shadow, every flicker of light, and every unexplained sound. The desert amplifies ordinary occurrences, whipping through cacti, distant vehicle lights, but, in combination with the haunted history, these sounds and sights become part of a larger, unsettling tapestry of spectral activity. Interstate 10's Arizona desert section is more than just a highway. It is a corridor of past tragedies, residual energies, and unexplained phenomena. Phantom semis appear without warning, ghostly pedestrians cross lanes only to vanish, and traffic jams emerge with no visible cause. Drivers hear whispers in the wind, sense unseen eyes upon them, and experience chills that cannot be explained. The road stretches endlessly, a dark ribbon through the desert, carrying the weight of accidents long past. For those who traverse it at night, every mile is a reminder that the desert is alive with echoes of history. And Interstate 10 itself may be haunted by the souls of those who never made it home. Highway 95 stretches through the remote Arizona desert, a long and desolate road surrounded by vast stretches of sand, rugged hills, and the occasional scrubby vegetation. By day, it appears as just another highway cutting through an unforgiving landscape. By night, however, travelers along this stretch often report experiences that defy explanation: figures disappearing into thin air, strange lights moving across the desert, and disembodied voices calling out from nowhere. Locals have long regarded this section of Highway 95 as haunted, a place where the past lingers and the desert itself seems alive with unseen watchers. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the appearance of ghostly figures along the roadside. Witnesses describe seeing men and women, sometimes in outdated clothing, walking or standing on the shoulder of the highway. At first glance, they may appear as ordinary pedestrians, but as drivers approach, the figures vanish as if evaporating into the desert air. Some travelers recount stopping in the hope of helping, only to find the area completely empty, the figures gone without a trace. These encounters often leave a lingering chill, and many drivers report feeling an inexplicable sense of being observed long after the figure has disappeared. Unexplained lights are another hallmark of this haunted stretch. Witnesses describe orbs or streaks of light moving erratically across the desert horizon. Sometimes these lights hover above the road, while at other times they appear to chase vehicles or dart into the darkness of the surrounding hills. The lights often behave in ways that defy natural explanation, vanishing when approached or intensifying when drivers stop to observe them. Some locals believe these lights are manifestations of spirits from past accidents or travelers who never reached their destinations, their energy lingering along the highway. Voices heard along Highway 95 add another layer of the supernatural. Drivers frequently report hearing faint calls or whispers, often repeating their own names or urgent warnings. The sounds seem to come from nowhere, sometimes appearing in the cab of a vehicle and other times carried across the desert wind. A common account involves a voice calling out for help, prompting drivers to search the surrounding area, only to find the desert empty. In some cases, these whispers are accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, cold spots forming in the vehicle, or a feeling of pressure against the chest, heightening the sense of unease. Several tragic incidents along Highway 95 may explain the haunting reputation. The road has historically been a site of fatal accidents, particularly in areas where the asphalt curves unexpectedly through dark stretches of desert. Over the decades, countless travelers have met untimely ends, and some theorists believe that the spirits of those who perished remain bound to the highway. One particularly unsettling account comes from a lone truck driver traveling north after dusk. As he drove along a remote stretch of Highway 95, he saw a figure standing near the road, dressed in clothing that seemed decades old. He slowed, but the figure simply stared before disappearing into thin air. Moments later, strange lights appeared in the distance, hovering low over the desert before darting toward the highway. He reported a feeling of unease and an overwhelming sense that he was being watched. When he finally reached a rest area, he found no other vehicles and no sign of the figure or lights. Yet the lingering chill and sense of presence remained with him long after he left. Investigators who have studied the area report unusual readings. EMF detectors often spike along certain stretches, Temperatures fluctuate sharply, without explanation. And night vision cameras sometimes capture fleeting shadows moving near the road. Audio recorders pick up faint whispers and the hum of movement in otherwise silent areas. Those who spend time exploring the highway describe a persistent sense of being observed, as though unseen eyes are tracking every step. These experiences suggest a concentrated supernatural energy, tied both to the history of the highway and to the isolation and emptiness of the desert landscape. Local folklore has grown around Highway 95, further fueling its eerie reputation. Stories tell of travelers seeing ghostly hitchhikers who vanish when given a ride, phantom vehicles appearing on empty stretches of road, and glowing figures moving silently across sand dunes. Some locals believe that the highway serves as a bridge between the living and the dead, a corridor where spirits replay moments from the past. Others suggest that the lights and voices act as warnings, manifestations meant to keep drivers alert or to guide lost souls through the desert. Regardless of the explanation, the reports are consistent and unnerving. The psychological effect of driving along this remote stretch cannot be ignored. The desert, with its long straightaways, darkness, and isolation, amplifies every shadow, every flicker of light, and every unexplained sound. Even those who do not directly witness apparitions often report a creeping sense of dread, heightened awareness of movement in the corner of their vision, and an unshakable feeling of being watched. The combination of environmental stress, the history of accidents, and local ghost stories creates an atmosphere where the supernatural seems entirely plausible. Highway 95 in Arizona is more than a simple road. It is a place where the desert, history, and the unexplained converge. Figures appear and vanish, lights move with impossible speed, and voices call out from nowhere. Drivers encounter sudden chills, cold spots, and an overwhelming sense of being followed, even in the middle of empty stretches. Whether these phenomena are the lingering presence of past travelers, residual energy from tragic accidents, or something beyond understanding, the reports are chilling and consistent. Those who traverse Highway 95 at night find themselves entering a corridor where the desert holds memories, and where the living and the spectral seem to coexist along the lonely asphalt. Highway 180 stretches across the vast deserts and high plains of New Mexico, a road where isolation and emptiness combine to create an atmosphere both stark and unsettling. Travelers along this route often describe experiences that cannot be explained by natural causes. Shadowy figures moving along the roadside, dense fog appearing in the middle of clear nights, and vehicles materializing out of nowhere only to vanish moments later. Locals have long whispered about the haunted reputation of Highway 180, warning that the road is a place where the boundary between the living and the supernatural seems thin. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the appearance of shadowy travelers. Witnesses describe figures dressed in clothing from decades past, walking along the edge of the highway, sometimes in groups, sometimes alone. Drivers often see these figures standing motionless, only to find them gone when they slow or stop to investigate. The disappearances are sudden and total, leaving no footprints or signs of passage. Many report an unsettling sense that these shadows are aware of their presence, turning their invisible gaze toward passing vehicles before dissolving into the darkness. Some travelers have pulled over, expecting to find stranded motorists in need of help, only to discover that the desert is empty. The shadows vanished, as if they had never been there. Unexplained fog adds another layer of mystery to Highway 180. In areas where the desert is normally dry and clear, drivers report dense mist forming suddenly, sometimes reducing visibility to mere feet. The fog often appears without warning and disappears just as quickly, vanishing in moments without any change in temperature or wind. Within this fog, witnesses claim to see vague shapes, moving silhouettes of people or animals that vanish when approached. Paranormal enthusiasts speculate that the fog is not natural, but a manifestation of residual energy from past tragedies or a portal through which spirits temporarily pass. Drivers caught in this fog often describe a chilling sensation, as if the air itself carries a weight, pressing down on them while obscuring the world around them. Perhaps the most unnerving experiences involve phantom vehicles. Numerous travelers recount seeing cars or trucks materialize on the highway, sometimes coming directly toward them. The vehicles appear solid at first, with headlights glaring and tires kicking up dust. Yet as drivers try to get a closer look, the vehicles vanish instantly, leaving no tracks or signs of passage. In some accounts, these ghostly vehicles seem to mimic the movements of real traffic, weaving through lanes, only to disappear when approached. Witnesses often describe a sense of disbelief and fear, unsure if what they saw was a hallucination, a trick of the light, or something more sinister. The history of Highway 180 may help explain its haunted reputation. The road has been the site of numerous accidents over the years, particularly in areas where the terrain rises and falls unpredictably. Drivers unfamiliar with the curves and sudden dips of the highway have often met untimely ends, and some believe that the spirits of those lost travelers continue to walk, run, or drive along the route. Local folklore includes stories of lost hitchhikers who appear and vanish, vehicles that chase drivers only to disappear, and eerie lights hovering above the asphalt, all suggesting that Highway 180 has absorbed the energy of countless tragic events. One particularly chilling encounter comes from a pair of travelers driving late at night. As they rounded a remote curve, they saw a figure standing in the middle of the road, waving for help. Slamming on the brakes, they watched in horror as the figure became translucent and then disappeared completely. Moments later, a low fog rolled across the highway, and out of it emerged the vague outline of a vehicle, headlights shining bright, moving toward them before vanishing into thin air. Both passengers reported an overwhelming feeling of dread, as if the desert itself was alive and watching their every move. When they finally reached a small town, they found the highway behind them completely empty, as if the events had occurred in a parallel reality. Paranormal investigators visiting Highway 180 have documented unusual readings. EMF detectors spike at certain points along the route, even when no electrical devices are nearby. Temperature sensors show sudden drops, often coinciding with sightings of shadows or fog. Cameras set up overnight sometimes capture unexplained orbs and streaks of light moving across empty stretches of road. Audio equipment has recorded whispers and faint footsteps in areas where no human or animal activity is possible. These phenomena suggest a concentrated supernatural presence, as if the highway itself is a conduit for entities from another plane. Local legends also speak of the psychological impact of the highway. The isolation, darkness, and vast openness create a sense of vulnerability for anyone traveling at night. Shadows in the corner of the eye, flickering lights, and sudden changes in fog combine to heighten anxiety, making the supernatural encounters even more convincing. Many residents avoid traveling Highway 180 after sunset, believing that the road carries spirits and energy best left undisturbed. The stories serve both as cautionary tales and as a reminder that the highway's history is etched not only in asphalt, but in the experiences of those who traverse it. Whether the shadowy travelers, the sudden fog, or the phantom vehicles are remnants of tragic accidents, manifestations of residual energy, or entirely unexplained phenomena, the reports are consistent and unsettling. Highway 180 is more than a simple road through New Mexico. It is a stretch of land where the desert seems alive, where the past lingers, and where the boundary between the living and the dead is uncertain. Those who drive it after dark enter a landscape that is as mysterious as it is desolate, where shadows move, fog rises inexplicably, and ghostly vehicles appear and vanish without warning. For those traveling Highway 180, the desert holds more than sand and rock. It holds memories, echoes of lives lost, and the spectral presence of travelers who never reached their destinations. The road is a place where the night comes alive, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and where every shadow, whisper, and flickering light serves as a reminder that some paths are haunted and some travelers may never truly leave the road behind. Highway 191 winds through the desolate stretches of Arizona, a lonely road that cuts across desert plains and rugged landscapes. For decades, Travelers have reported experiences that defy explanation. Ghostly hitchhikers appearing on the side of the road, strange lights hovering over empty stretches, and the sound of car engines revving in complete silence. These accounts have made Highway 191 a location of both fascination and fear, drawing paranormal enthusiasts as well as wary motorists. Many of the reports focus on ghostly hitchhikers. Drivers recount seeing figures dressed in outdated clothing, standing along the roadside with an outstretched thumb. When approached, the hitchhiker often seems oddly still, sometimes vanishing when the car slows or stops. In other cases, drivers stop and the figure climbs into the back seat, only to disappear entirely before reaching the next mile marker. Witnesses frequently describe a sense of unease, as if the ghostly presence is aware of their fear, observing silently before dissolving into the desert night. One motorist described seeing a young woman in a 1950s dress, her eyes hollow and distant, who asked for a ride to a town that had long since vanished from maps. When he looked again, she was gone, leaving the car eerily cold and silent. Another common phenomenon involves mysterious lights. Drivers report seeing orbs of light hovering over the desert, sometimes following vehicles, other times darting across the landscape in ways that defy normal physics. These lights are often described as bright, white, and pulsating, appearing suddenly in clear skies and disappearing just as quickly. Some witnesses have compared the lights to lanterns floating in the distance, while others say they resemble headlights of vehicles with no driver. In several cases, these lights have caused drivers to swerve or stop, only to find nothing ahead, as if the road itself had swallowed the illumination. Phantom car engines revving in silence add another layer of terror to the highway's reputation. Travelers often report hearing the roar of a vehicle approaching, complete with tires skidding and engines revving. Yet when they look around, the road is empty. Sometimes the sound seems to echo behind them, keeping pace as if an invisible vehicle were tailing them at impossible speeds. Other times, the engine noises appear ahead, only to vanish when the driver attempts to investigate. Witnesses describe a sensation of tension, as if unseen drivers are present, watching and interacting with the living in a realm just out of sight. Many locals believe the hauntings are tied to the highway's long history. Highway 191 has witnessed countless accidents over the years, particularly in isolated stretches where the road bends sharply or drops suddenly into canyons. Stories of lost travelers who never made it to their destinations are common, with ghostly figures appearing to recreate their final journeys or seek the assistance they were denied in life. Some speculate that the desert's isolation amplifies these phenomena, leaving witnesses particularly vulnerable to encounters with the supernatural. One particularly chilling encounter involved a family driving late at night. As they rounded a remote bend, a figure suddenly appeared on the shoulder, signaling for help. The father stopped the car, but when he stepped out, the figure vanished into the desert sand. Moments later, the faint sound of an engine revving filled the air, though no vehicle was visible. The family hurried along the road, and behind them, they claimed to see a flicker of headlights racing across the desert, only to disappear in an instant. The experience left them shaken, convinced that Highway 191 holds a lingering connection to those who died or disappeared along its stretches. Paranormal investigators have visited the highway, documenting strange readings and anomalies. EMF detectors spike unexpectedly along certain sections, and temperature monitors register sudden drops, even in the desert heat. Cameras left overnight capture streaks of light and occasional shadowy figures moving across lanes. Audio equipment has recorded whispers and indistinct conversations that cannot be attributed to any human source. These findings suggest that Highway 191 may be a concentrated point of paranormal energy, where the past and present intersect in ways that defy rational explanation. Beyond the documented phenomena, travelers report a psychological impact from driving the highway at night. The isolation, darkness, and open vistas create a heightened sense of vulnerability. Shadows in the corners of vision, sudden changes in light, and inexplicable sounds amplify anxiety, making supernatural experiences feel more immediate and tangible. Many drivers report a feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes track their movements across the desert expanse. These sensations contribute to the road's reputation as a place best avoided after sunset, where ordinary perceptions are stretched and the unknown seems to loom around every bend. Despite the fear it inspires, Highway 191 continues to draw those seeking encounters with the paranormal. Ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and curious motorists travel the road, hoping to witness the apparitions, lights, and phantom engines for themselves. While not everyone experiences the phenomena, the consistency of reports across decades suggests that there is something unusual about this stretch of roads, something that persists beyond the natural world and into the realm of the unexplained. For travelers along Highway 191, the road is more than a simple route through the Arizona desert. It is a place where time seems to fold, where the spirits of the past linger, and where the boundary between the living and the dead is uncertain. Ghostly hitchhikers appear and vanish, mysterious lights hover over empty stretches, and phantom engines roar in silence, reminding all who pass that some roads are haunted, and some travelers never truly leave the desert behind. Highway 93 stretches through the barren deserts of Nevada, a lonely ribbon of asphalt cutting across rugged terrain, steep canyons, and open desert plains. By day, it is a long, quiet drive, often devoid of traffic, the sun beating down on travelers and mirages dancing on the horizon. But by night, the highway becomes a corridor of unease, a place where the ordinary rules of reality seem to bend, and shadowy figures and unexplained phenomena have been reported for decades. One of the most common accounts along Highway 93 involves ghostly motorcyclists. Witnesses describe figures riding motorcycles at impossible speeds, often without headlights, weaving between vehicles, or appearing suddenly from patches of darkness. Drivers report the chilling sensation of being watched as these spectral riders approach, yet when they glance to see who or what is behind them, the motorcycles vanish without a trace. In some cases, drivers who have tried to follow these figures describe the motorcycles disappearing mid-lane, as if passing through solid air. The riders are often described as wearing vintage leather or military-style gear, giving the impression of travelers from another era, forever traversing the Nevada desert in spectral pursuit. Another frequent phenomenon reported along Highway 93 is sudden patches of fog. These fog banks appear inexplicably in the desert, rolling across the asphalt in areas where no moisture should exist. Drivers describe entering these fogs only to find their visibility reduced to a few feet, lights from vehicles ahead appearing distorted and multiplied. Within these fog patches, strange sensations emerge, whispers carried on the wind, shadows moving at the edge of perception, and a weighty sense of being observed. Some have even reported headlights or taillights moving through the fog in impossible directions, weaving along the road as though the mist itself contains life. The fog often dissipates as suddenly as it appeared, leaving drivers shaken and questioning whether what they experienced was natural or supernatural. Lights darting across the highway are another hallmark of this section of Nevada. Witnesses report small orbs, sometimes white, sometimes red or blue, appearing along the roadside or hovering above the desert. These lights move unpredictably, sometimes following vehicles, sometimes darting in opposite directions, and occasionally disappearing into the night sky without explanation. Motorists often attempt to photograph or record the phenomena, but cameras frequently capture only faint streaks of light or blurred shapes, reinforcing the mysterious and ephemeral nature of the occurrences. Some locals speculate these lights may be connected to the numerous abandoned mining sites and ghost towns that dot the landscape, their restless energy somehow manifesting along the highway. Many travelers along Highway 93 also recount the sensation of being followed. Even when the road is empty, drivers report the distinct feeling of another presence riding or walking alongside their vehicle. Mirrors may reflect shadowy forms that vanish when looked at directly, and sometimes the radio will crackle with static or faint voices calling out names that are not their own. Drivers often report sudden drops in temperature, chills along their spine, and a pressure in the air that makes breathing feel heavier. These encounters, combined with the visual phenomena, create a pervasive sense of unease, making the night drive along Highway 93 an experience few undertake willingly. There are also stories of physical manifestations. One driver reported swerving to avoid a shadowy motorcyclist that appeared on a tight curve. When he came to a stop, there was no motorcycle, no skid marks, and no evidence that anything had been there at all. On another occasion, a pair of travelers witnessed a glowing orb moving across the desert floor, bouncing along as if alive, and felt sudden gusts of wind that seemed to push their vehicle from behind. Some claim that the desert itself becomes an active participant in the paranormal events, a living landscape that responds to human presence with echoes of the past or disturbances in the present. Highway 93 has a long history, with countless travelers having crossed its stretches over the decades. Many accidents have occurred here, particularly during night drives when fog patches, sharp turns, and sudden wildlife crossings can make driving treacherous. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that the spirits of those who perished along the highway may be tied to these strange occurrences, lingering as restless shadows or distorted echoes of their final moments. Some speculate that the desert amplifies residual energies, allowing them to manifest in the form of ghostly riders, hovering lights, and mysterious fog banks. Paranormal investigators have documented anomalies along Highway 93. Cameras often capture streaks of light and shadowy figures moving along the roadside. EMF meters spike inexplicably, and temperature sensors record sudden drops, even in the dry desert heat. Audio equipment sometimes records indistinct voices, faint whispers, and the sound of engines or tires that are not present. These findings suggest a concentration of unexplained activity along this stretch of road, corroborating the accounts of countless motorists who have driven the highway and encountered phenomena beyond rational explanation. The psychological effect of Highway 93 cannot be understated. Its isolation, darkness, and vast open spaces amplify the senses, making even ordinary shadows appear threatening. Drivers report heightened anxiety, the feeling of being watched, and sudden starts when the wind shifts or a headlight reflects in an unexpected way. These factors make it difficult to determine where natural perception ends and paranormal activity begins, further enhancing the highway's reputation as a haunted or cursed route. Despite the danger and fear associated with Highway 93, it continues to draw thrill-seekers, ghost hunters, and curious travelers hoping to witness the spectral phenomena firsthand. The ghostly motorcyclists, mysterious fog patches, and darting lights are experiences many claim to have documented, or at least felt on a personal level, and the stories persist across generations. Highway 93 has become more than a road. It is a passage through time, a corridor where the living and the spirits of the desert meet, where the past and present coexist in ways that defy explanation. For those who travel this stretch of Nevada at night, the warnings are clear. Watch for shadowy figures on motorcycles, beware of sudden fog, and respect the flickering lights that appear and vanish across the asphalt. Highway 93 is a place where reality blurs, where the desert is alive with restless spirits, and where ghostly travelers may ride beside you, silently, for miles you will never forget. Highway 54 stretches across the vast, open deserts of New Mexico, cutting through lonely stretches of asphalt where the horizon seems endless and the night sky is a dome of stars. By day, the road is quiet and mostly uneventful, offering travelers long views of desert mesas, dry washes, and distant mountain ranges. But as night falls, locals say the highway transforms into something far more sinister, a place where the ordinary rules of reality seem suspended, and where ghostly figures, unexplained cold spots, and phantom vehicles have been reported for decades. Many accounts describe shadowy figures walking along the road, sometimes appearing suddenly at the edge of the highway and vanishing when approached. These figures are often seen in the glow of headlights, moving in unnatural ways, pausing mid-step, gliding forward, or disappearing entirely before a vehicle can reach them. Drivers who have encountered these apparitions report an eerie sense of being watched, accompanied by a chill that descends instantly in the desert night, even on warm evenings. Some claim that these figures resemble travelers from past eras, wearing outdated clothing, as if caught between the living world and another plane. Unexplained cold spots are a frequent phenomenon along Highway 54. Motorists report sudden drops in temperature, often localized to one area of the road or vehicle. One driver recounted passing through a stretch of desert where his car windows fogged despite the dry air outside. The temperature plummeted inside the vehicle, and he felt a heavy, almost physical presence pressing on him. Cold spots are often reported in conjunction with sightings of figures or phantom vehicles. As though the two phenomena are linked, manifestations of the same restless energy inhabiting the highway. Phantom vehicles are perhaps the most alarming experiences reported along Highway 54. Locals describe headlights appearing in the distance, approaching quickly along empty lanes, only to vanish before any encounter. Some drivers have witnessed cars or trucks materialize beside them, sometimes matching the make and model of vehicles from decades past. These spectral vehicles often behave erratically, accelerating to impossible speeds, changing lanes without a driver, or vanishing entirely mid-pass. A few travelers have reported that their radios and GPS systems malfunction when these phantom vehicles appear, adding to the sense of disorientation and fear. In addition to visual phenomena, Highway 54 is known for auditory anomalies. Drivers report hearing phantom engines, revving tires, squealing, and the distant hum of vehicles that are never physically present. Sometimes these sounds are accompanied by voices, whispers calling names, laughter echoing across empty stretches, or the urgent tones of someone warning travelers to slow down or turn back. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences makes navigating this highway at night an unsettling venture, as if the desert itself becomes alive with echoes of past events and lingering spirits. Many locals associate the hauntings of Highway 54 with historical accidents and tragedies. The road has seen numerous fatal collisions over the years, particularly at night when visibility is low and the highway stretches for miles without interruption. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that the spirits of those who perished here may be tied to the road, manifesting as shadowy walkers, phantom vehicles, and cold spots. Some speculate that the desolate landscape amplifies residual energy, allowing it to interact with travelers in unpredictable ways. Several witnesses describe attempts to interact with these apparitions. Drivers have tried honking, flashing lights, or even pulling over to confront shadowy figures walking along the roadside. In many cases, the figures simply vanish, leaving no footprints or evidence of their presence. In other instances, travelers report feeling a sudden brush against their vehicles or an inexplicable gust of cold wind, as if the spirits themselves are acknowledging their presence. Phantom vehicles, when approached, often flicker in and out of view, their forms becoming transparent before disappearing entirely, leaving only the desert and the hum of the highway behind. Investigators and paranormal enthusiasts have documented a range of anomalies along Highway 54. EMF meters and temperature sensors detect spikes and drops, coinciding with reports of figures or phantom vehicles. Audio recorders sometimes pick up indistinct whispers or mechanical sounds that cannot be explained by passing traffic. These findings lend credibility to the numerous reports from locals and travelers who have experienced encounters firsthand. The psychological impact of driving along Highway 54 cannot be overlooked. Its isolation, darkness, and vast openness heighten the senses, making even ordinary shadows appear menacing. Many travelers report feeling anxious or watched, their attention drawn to every flicker of light or shift in the road. The combination of the highway's remote location, historical tragedies, and inexplicable phenomena makes it a prime location for eerie experiences, where reality and the supernatural seem to intertwine. Despite the fear associated with Highway 54, it continues to draw drivers, ghost hunters, and curious travelers seeking first-hand experiences. Shadowy figures, cold spots, and phantom vehicles remain a persistent part of the road's reputation. Locals warn nighttime travelers to stay alert, respect the strange phenomena, and avoid unnecessary risks while driving through the haunted stretches. The highway has become more than just a road. It is a corridor of mystery, a passage where the desert holds memories of the past, and where the living may cross paths with the unexplained. Highway 54 remains a place of intrigue, danger, and spectral sightings. For those driving under the cover of night, the warnings are unmistakable. Watch for shadowy figures along the roadside. Brace for sudden cold spots, and remain cautious of phantom vehicles appearing from nowhere. In this stretch of New Mexico desert, the ordinary world blurs with the supernatural, and travelers never know what or who they might encounter along the lonely, haunted highway. Highway 62 cuts through the remote stretches of Arizona, winding across desert plains, rocky outcrops, and stretches of empty asphalt that disappear into the horizon. By day, the highway is quiet but uneventful, with only the occasional truck or local traveler passing through. By night, however, the road takes on a far more unsettling character. Travelers passing through this isolated stretch of desert report ghostly figures appearing at intersections, lights hovering above the asphalt, and unexplained footsteps that seem to follow their cars. Over the years, Highway 62 has earned a reputation among locals and long-distance drivers as one of the most haunted routes in the state. One of the most common experiences reported along Highway 62 involves ghostly figures appearing at intersections. Witnesses describe shadows moving in ways that defy natural movement. Sometimes these figures appear briefly in the glow of headlights, frozen mid-step as if trapped between moments, only to vanish when approached. Drivers often report a sudden chill when these figures appear, a drop in temperature that can be felt through the steering wheel and the seats of the car. One trucker recounted seeing a man in outdated clothing step onto the road as he rounded a bend. The trucker swerved to avoid hitting him, only for the figure to disappear entirely, leaving no footprints or evidence of ever being there. In addition to figures at intersections, many travelers report strange lights hovering above the asphalt. These lights are often described as small, bright orbs or glowing shapes that drift slowly along the road, sometimes rising and falling in ways that defy explanation. Some witnesses say the lights appear in groups, forming patterns before moving off into the desert, while others see single lights that follow their vehicles for miles. Motorists who encounter these lights often feel a deep unease, sensing that they are being watched or guided by an unseen presence. Several reports indicate that radios, GPS systems, and even car headlights malfunction in proximity to these lights, adding to the feeling of disorientation and fear. Perhaps the most unnerving phenomenon on Highway 62 is the sound of unexplained footsteps following vehicles. Drivers have reported hearing the rhythmic thump of someone running alongside their car or pacing just behind them, even when no one is visible outside. Some describe the footsteps as rapid and panicked, others as slow and deliberate, almost like someone is measuring the vehicle's speed. On a few occasions, travelers have claimed that the footsteps stop when they slow down, only to resume the moment they accelerate. This auditory anomaly creates a tense, eerie environment where even a straight, empty stretch of road feels alive with the unseen. Historical events may play a role in the hauntings reported along Highway 62. The road has been the site of numerous accidents, some fatal, particularly at night when visibility is low and the road stretches for miles without interruption. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that the spirits of those who perished in these accidents may remain tethered to the highway, manifesting as ghostly figures, floating lights, or the sound of footsteps. Others speculate that Highway 62, running through such isolated terrain, may amplify residual energy, making encounters with the paranormal more likely. Several travelers have tried to document these phenomena with cameras or recording devices. Night vision footage sometimes captures indistinct shapes standing near intersections or moving along the roadside. Dashcams occasionally show lights appearing in empty lanes, hovering and then disappearing. Audio recordings can capture faint footsteps, whispers, or the creak of doors and structures that are nowhere in sight. While skeptics argue that optical illusions, mirages, and the human mind's tendency to fill in gaps can explain some of these experiences, The consistency and frequency of reports over decades suggests something more mysterious is at play. Interactions with these apparitions vary widely. Some drivers report that figures simply vanish when approached, while others claim more active encounters. Vehicles sometimes experience sudden stalls, headlights flicker, or car doors lock and unlock without explanation. Travelers have also reported hearing warnings whispered through closed windows, or feeling cold, unseen hands on the steering wheel or seat. In rare cases, witnesses say the lights above the road seem to react to their actions, changing color, speed, or pattern when the vehicle accelerates, stops, or turns off the highway. Psychologically, driving along Highway 62 at night can heighten fear and anxiety. Its isolation, combined with reports of paranormal activity, makes even ordinary shadows and light reflections appear threatening. Drivers often feel a heightened sense of awareness, noticing every flicker in the distance, every shift in the sand dunes, and every rustle from nearby desert vegetation. The combination of isolation, darkness, and inexplicable events creates an environment where the mind is primed to perceive the unexplainable, blurring the line between reality and supernatural encounters. Local legends continue to grow around the highway. Residents warn travelers to stay vigilant, especially near intersections and stretches of road with long, empty vistas. Some suggest avoiding night travel altogether or maintaining constant communication with other vehicles. The stories of ghostly figures, floating lights, and footsteps have become part of the cultural lore. Whispered among truckers, highway patrol officers, and locals who pass the stories down to warn and intrigue those willing to travel the lonely road. Highway 62 remains a place where ordinary travel becomes an unsettling experience. The combination of ghostly figures, hovering lights, and the eerie sound of footsteps creates a sense that the desert itself is alive with echoes from the past. Travelers who journey along this haunted stretch often leave with more than memories of a road trip. They carry stories of encounters that defy explanation. A chilling reminder that some highways may serve as conduits for the unexplained, where the past lingers and the desert holds its secrets closely. For those driving through Arizona's remote landscapes, Highway 62 is not just a stretch of asphalt, it is a corridor of mystery. Those who venture onto it at night are advised to remain cautious, observant, and respectful of the inexplicable phenomena that have haunted it for decades. Shadowy figures may appear at intersections, hovering lights may drift across the road, and phantom footsteps may echo alongside vehicles. In this desert stretch, the boundary between the living and the unseen grows thin, and travelers become participants in the ongoing enigma of Highway 62. Route 66, stretching across the Texas desert, carries with it a long history of travel, commerce, and tragedy. While the highway has been immortalized as a symbol of freedom and adventure, its isolated stretches through the desert have also given rise to countless eerie stories and ghostly encounters. The Texas portion of Route 66, in particular, is renowned among travelers and locals for its paranormal activity, haunted by tragic accidents and a long history of abandoned motels, diners, and gas stations. This section of the historic highway has become a magnet for shadowy figures, phantom headlights, and voices calling out from empty stretches of road. Many witnesses describe shadowy figures moving along the roadside, often near old, abandoned motels that once catered to weary travelers. These figures appear suddenly in the glow of headlights, standing perfectly still for a moment before vanishing into the desert air. Truck drivers and nighttime travelers frequently report seeing travelers dressed in outdated clothing from decades past, sometimes waving or attempting to hitch a ride. When drivers stop to investigate, the figures are gone, leaving only the faint impression of footsteps on the dusty road. Locals claim that these spirits are tied to tragic accidents and lost travelers who never completed their journey, lingering near the places where their lives ended. Phantom headlights are another common phenomenon along this stretch of Route 66. Drivers have reported seeing headlights approaching from the opposite direction, only to disappear before they reach the center of the road. In some cases, motorists describe multiple sets of headlights appearing in tandem, moving at impossible speeds, or vanishing suddenly as if absorbed into the night. Some travelers recall hearing the roar of engines without seeing any vehicle, a phenomenon that has caused panic among those unfamiliar with the highway's haunted reputation. Witnesses often experience sudden chills, goosebumps, or an overwhelming sense of being watched whenever these lights appear, heightening the tension during nighttime drives. Voices calling out from empty stretches of road are perhaps the most unnerving aspect of Route 66 in the Texas desert. Many travelers report hearing cries for help, whispers, or faint conversations coming from areas where no one is present. Some describe disembodied laughter, low murmurs, or urgent shouts warning them to slow down or stop. The voices often seem to follow travelers as they drive, sometimes fading when the car is still and returning when motion resumes. Paranormal investigators suggest that these sounds are residual haunting echoes of tragic events, imprinted onto the landscape, repeating themselves in an endless loop. Abandoned motels along this section of Route 66 play a central role in the highway's haunted reputation. Once thriving stops for cross-country travelers, many of these motels now sit in ruins, with peeling paint, broken windows, and deserted parking lots. Locals and visitors alike report strange occurrences near these sites, doors opening and closing on their own, lights flickering without electricity, and shadowy figures appearing in windows. Some travelers have reported seeing figures inside the rooms, sitting on beds or standing silently in corners, disappearing as soon as they are approached. Others recount objects moving inexplicably, such as suitcases sliding across dusty floors or chairs tipping over without cause. In addition to visual and auditory phenomena, many witnesses describe a distinct sense of unease while traveling through these desert stretches. The isolation of the highway amplifies every sound, from the creak of a fence post to the whisper of wind through the scrub brush. Travelers often report sudden temperature drops, an unexplainable feeling of being followed, and even physical sensations such as light touches on their shoulders or the pressure of unseen hands against their backs. These experiences create an atmosphere where even the smallest anomaly feels deeply unsettling, and the boundary between the natural and supernatural blurs. Historical accounts add context to the haunting of Route 66. The Texas desert has been the site of numerous fatal accidents, often involving travelers unfamiliar with the desolate terrain or inattentive to the long stretches of empty road. Gasoline shortages, extreme heat, and vehicle malfunctions contributed to many tragedies over the decades. Locals suggest that the spirits of those who perished remain tethered to the highway, appearing as shadowy figures, guiding lights, or audible warnings for those who travel after dark. The road itself becomes a repository of memory and loss, a place where the past lingers and unseen presences are felt keenly. Paranormal investigations along Route 66 have yielded intriguing, if inconclusive, evidence. Some researchers have captured photographs showing faint humanoid shapes standing beside the road or in abandoned parking lots. Audio recordings occasionally pick up whispers, moans, or distant cries where no human presence exists. Witnesses report unexplained movements of objects, cold spots, and flashes of light in areas where electricity has long been disconnected. While skeptics attribute many experiences to imagination, fatigue, and optical illusions in the desert heat and darkness, the sheer consistency of reports across decades suggests a persistent, unexplained phenomenon. Travelers along the Texas desert section of Route 66 have learned to respect the road's eerie reputation. Many advise sticking to daytime travel to avoid encounters, while others embrace the stories as part of the adventure, accepting that the desert holds mysteries that defy explanation. For those willing to drive at night, the experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures appear in the glow of headlights. Lights hover above the asphalt without source, and the whisper of voices reminds travelers that they are never truly alone on this haunted stretch of highway. Route 66 in the Texas desert remains a corridor of history, mystery, and the unexplained. The combination of ghostly figures, phantom headlights, and voices calling from empty stretches creates an environment where ordinary travel becomes tense and surreal. The road is a reminder that even the most iconic highways can hold secrets, that tragedy leaves marks beyond the physical, and that some spirits linger, tethered to the places where their stories ended. Those who traverse this desolate portion of Route 66 are not just crossing a highway, they are walking through echoes of the past, witnessing the inexplicable, and becoming part of a long tradition of haunted travel that stretches across the American landscape. Highway 160 cuts a lonely path through the deserts and mesas of northern Arizona, winding its way past small towns, empty gas stations, and stretches of barren land where the horizon seems endless. By day, it's a scenic route for travelers seeking the stark beauty of the desert. But by night, it transforms into a corridor steeped in eerie tales and paranormal activity. Locals and travelers alike have reported encounters with phantom vehicles, shadowy figures on the curves, and mysterious fog that seems to appear from nowhere, enveloping cars and leaving drivers shaken and questioning what they have witnessed. Many travelers report seeing phantom vehicles appear suddenly in their rearview mirrors or headlights, moving alongside them for miles before vanishing without a trace. These vehicles are often described as outdated cars or trucks from decades past, yet they move silently, without engine noise, and sometimes pass through other vehicles or disappear entirely when drivers try to follow them. Some motorists recount the chilling sensation of being watched from these spectral vehicles, a sense of pressure building in the car as though the unseen presence is pressing closer. Witnesses often describe a rapid heartbeat, tense shoulders, and the overwhelming feeling that something is not right on the seemingly empty road. Shadowy figures along the curves of Highway 1060 are another common and unsettling phenomenon. Drivers report glimpsing human shapes standing at the edges of bends, sometimes waving, sometimes motionless. When approached, the figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints, tire marks, or evidence of anyone being there. Many witnesses describe these apparitions as faint, almost transparent silhouettes. Yet the emotional impact is unmistakable. Fear grips drivers as they try to navigate the dark curves. Some claim the figures appear at the exact locations where accidents have historically occurred, suggesting a lingering imprint of past tragedies that continues to haunt the road. Unexplained fog is yet another feature of Highway 160 that has terrified those traveling after dark. Without warning, a dense mist can descend on a vehicle, obscuring the road entirely and reflecting headlights in an unnatural way. Drivers often slow to a crawl, gripping the wheel tightly, only to have the fog lift moments later, revealing the road empty and the surrounding desert still. This fog seems to appear selectively, surrounding only certain vehicles and never lingering for long. Paranormal enthusiasts speculate that the fog is connected to residual energy from accidents or other dramatic events that occurred on the highway, a phenomenon that transforms ordinary road conditions into something profoundly unnerving. Several accounts involve combinations of these phenomena, where drivers report both shadowy figures and phantom vehicles, sometimes accompanied by the fog rolling in to surround their car. One traveler recounted driving late at night when a faded truck appeared in the lane beside him. Its lights glowed dimly in the darkness, and a human-shaped figure could be seen through the windshield, staring directly at him. Terrified, he swerved to give it space, only to find the truck gone a moment later, leaving an unnatural mist lingering in the headlights' glow. He described a sensation of intense dread that followed him for miles, a weight that lifted only when the highway finally led him out of the desert stretch. Historical context adds depth to the haunting reputation of Highway 160. This highway has witnessed countless accidents over the decades, particularly along blind curves, steep inclines, and stretches with limited visibility. Mechanical failures, driver fatigue, and unpredictable desert weather have contributed to many tragedies, leaving a lasting impression on locals and travelers. Paranormal researchers suggest that the spirits of those who lost their lives along these treacherous curves continue to roam the road, appearing as phantom vehicles, shadowy figures, or even fog that envelops modern travelers. Residents in nearby towns have long shared warnings, urging visitors to drive cautiously, to respect the road after dark, and to be prepared for encounters that defy explanation. Investigations by paranormal teams have provided additional, if inconclusive, evidence of the highway's supernatural activity. Nighttime monitoring has captured faint orbs of light hovering near the road, sometimes darting in and out of view. Audio recordings taken in the area occasionally pick up unidentifiable engine noises, whispers, or faint cries, even when no vehicles or people are present. Some researchers have noted sudden drops in temperature near certain curves, a coldness that seems to cling to vehicles and occupants in ways that defy the natural environment, while skeptics argue that many experiences are illusions caused by desert mirages, fatigue, or imagination. The consistency of reports across decades and among different witnesses lends credibility to the highway's reputation as a site of paranormal activity. Travelers along Highway 160 have adapted in various ways to these reports. Some choose to avoid night driving entirely, preferring to travel only during daylight when visibility and a sense of safety are at their peak. Others embrace the eerie tales as part of the adventure, cautiously exploring the curves and stretches where encounters are most often reported. Local lore continues to be passed down, with warnings about phantom vehicles, shadowy figures, and sudden fog forming an integral part of the highway's cultural narrative. Those familiar with the road speak of it as more than just asphalt and desert. It is a place where history, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena converge, creating an environment where ordinary travel becomes an unforgettable, sometimes terrifying, experience. Highway 160 in Arizona is a highway of contrasts. During the day, a scenic desert drive, but after dark, a stretch of road where the line between the living and the supernatural blurs. Phantom vehicles appear, shadowy figures stand silently on curves, and dense fog envelops travelers without warning. The road bears witness to past tragedies, accidents, and unexplained occurrences, leaving travelers to navigate both the asphalt and the lingering spirits. For those brave enough to drive these stretches at night, Highway 160 offers not only the isolation of the desert, but also an encounter with the unknown, a reminder that some roads hold memories that refuse to fade, haunting travelers long after they have passed. Highway 50 stretches across the stark expanse of Utah's desert, a lonely route that has earned the nickname the loneliest road in America. By day, it is a remote and scenic drive, offering travelers views of vast plains, distant mountains, and open skies. By night, however, the highway transforms into a corridor of unsettling experiences, where ghostly hitchhikers, mysterious lights, and phantom footsteps have become part of the folklore shared among locals and those who dare to drive after dark. Drivers along this section of Highway 50 have consistently reported sightings of ghostly hitchhikers. These figures often appear at isolated stretches of road, standing on the shoulder in the dim glow of passing headlights. Many witnesses describe them as young men or women, dressed in clothing from decades past, waving or silently signaling for a ride. Travelers who stop to offer assistance often find that when they glance back at the figure in their rearview mirror, the hitchhiker has vanished, leaving the road empty and an unsettling chill lingering in the car. In some cases, motorists report sudden drops in temperature or a feeling of intense dread, as if the presence of the figure has followed them for miles. The phenomenon has become so well known that some locals advise avoiding picking up hitchhikers after dark, believing that these spectral travelers are tied to tragedies that occurred along the highway in years past. In addition to the phantom hitchhikers, Highway 50 is notorious for strange lights appearing over the desert flats. Travelers recount seeing orbs of white, yellow, or red light hovering just above the horizon, moving with a deliberate, almost intelligent rhythm. These lights sometimes approach vehicles, mimicking headlights, only to vanish as quickly as they appeared. Witnesses describe feeling an inexplicable sense of being watched, accompanied by a low hum or faint whispering that seems to emanate from the air around them. Some have reported pulling over, only to find the lights hovering over barren desert ground, with no source or explanation in sight. Paranormal researchers suggest that these lights may be residual energy from past travelers or accidents, or perhaps manifestations of spirits trying to communicate. Skeptics argue that the lights are natural phenomena, reflections, distant car headlights, or atmospheric conditions, but the sheer number of consistent reports over decades defies simple explanation. Phantom footsteps along the shoulder of Highway 50 add another layer of fear for nighttime travelers. Drivers report hearing the distinct sound of footsteps crunching on gravel beside their vehicles, sometimes keeping pace with their cars even as they accelerate. The sound is often accompanied by a pressure against the tires or a sense of a presence running alongside. But when drivers stop or step out to investigate, no one is there. The footsteps can come in rhythmic patterns, as if someone is running or marching, or in erratic bursts, adding to the disorienting experience. In many reports, the footsteps are paired with the appearance of a ghostly figure briefly glimpsed in the corner of an eye, disappearing when directly observed. The combination of sounds, sudden temperature changes, and visual anomalies leaves witnesses shaken and unwilling to discuss the events for fear of ridicule or disbelief. Historical tragedies along Highway 50 provide context for these paranormal encounters. The road has seen countless accidents over the years, especially in areas where sharp curves, sudden drops, and treacherous weather create dangerous conditions. Local lore suggests that many of the ghostly hitchhikers are travelers who died tragically while attempting to cross these isolated stretches, their spirits lingering along the highway in search of a ride that will never come. The lights over the desert flats are sometimes linked to fatal collisions or lost travelers trying to signal for help. Phantom footsteps are believed to be echoes of those who walked along the roadside in life, now replaying moments frozen in time. Together, these stories create a chilling narrative that transforms a quiet drive into an experience steeped in tension and unease. Paranormal investigators have attempted to document and study these phenomena, often traveling the highway after dark with cameras, audio equipment, and thermal sensors. Many report capturing faint orbs of light moving along the road, anomalous temperature drops, and audio anomalies resembling whispers or distant footsteps. Some investigators claim to have recorded spectral figures materializing and disappearing beside vehicles, although the footage often appears blurry or distorted, as if the presence itself resists being captured fully by human technology. Witnesses consistently note the emotional impact of these encounters, a mix of fear, disorientation, and awe that lingers long after the highway has been left behind. Travelers navigating the Utah section of Highway 50 have adapted in various ways to the haunting reputation of the road. Many drive cautiously after dusk, leaving plenty of distance between vehicles and avoiding sudden stops in remote stretches. Some view the legends as a challenge, taking the night drive as a way to test courage while respecting the eerie energy that has enveloped the route for decades. Locals continue to share warnings and personal accounts, describing the ghostly hitchhikers, hovering lights, and footsteps with a seriousness that underscores their consistency and long-standing presence in the area's culture. For those unfamiliar with the road, these stories serve as both cautionary tales and invitations into a landscape where history, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena intersect. Highway 50's Utah section is more than just a road. It is a passage where the ordinary and the supernatural coexist. Ghostly hitchhikers linger on the roadside, strange lights dance across the desert flats, and phantom footsteps echo along the shoulder, creating an experience that is as unsettling as it is unforgettable. Travelers who drive after dark are not merely navigating asphalt, they are moving through a corridor of history, loss, and spectral energy. Whether one believes in the paranormal or not, the road leaves an impression, a lingering sense that some journeys are never truly alone, and that some travelers, past and present, may still walk, run, or wait along the lonely stretches of Highway 50. Highway 10 stretches across the vast California desert, a long and desolate route where the sun scorches the asphalt by day and shadows dominate the landscape at night. By day, it is a typical highway, lined with scrub, rocks, and the occasional rest stop. By night, however, Highway 10 transforms into a corridor of unease, where strange occurrences, ghostly figures, and unexplained phenomena have been reported for decades. Locals and travelers alike have come to regard this stretch of desert as a place where the ordinary rules of the road no longer fully apply. One of the most commonly reported experiences involves ghostly figures walking along the highway, often illuminated by the headlights of passing cars. These figures are usually described as human-shaped, sometimes appearing as ordinary travelers, dressed in clothing from past decades. Motorists recount seeing them step into the road suddenly, forcing drivers to brake or swerve to avoid them, only to find that moments later, the figures vanish without a trace. Some drivers, while trying to stop and investigate, report that the figures seem to retreat just beyond reach, disappearing into the darkness or blending seamlessly into the desert landscape. The experience often leaves witnesses shaken, with a lingering sense that something unseen is tracking their movements. In addition to these spectral pedestrians, Highway 10 has a long history of strange fog enveloping vehicles at night. Drivers report thick, low-lying fog that appears suddenly, often in isolated stretches where the desert is otherwise clear. The fog can reduce visibility to mere feet, and headlights seem to cut through it without illuminating anything beyond a few yards. Within the fog, travelers have reported seeing vague, shifting shapes sometimes resembling people, animals, or objects that vanish as soon as they are directly observed. Some describe feeling as though the fog is alive, pressing in from all sides, accompanied by sudden drops in temperature that make the desert air feel icy despite the surrounding heat. Many attribute these fog events to natural desert phenomena, yet their sudden appearance, the shapes seen within, and the emotional intensity of the encounters suggest something far more mysterious. Unexplained engine noises are another hallmark of Highway 10's desert section. Drivers often hear revving engines, honking horns, or the screech of tires nearby. Yet when they check mirrors or turn around, no vehicle is visible. Some motorists have reported the sounds of vehicles tailing them, maintaining pace even on stretches where no other car should be present. Others describe phantom collisions, loud bangs, or crashes that leave no marks on their vehicles or the surrounding roadway. These auditory phenomena are particularly unnerving because they mimic real-world danger, triggering instinctive fear and forcing drivers to react as though a tangible threat is present. In some cases, the sounds are accompanied by lights or shadowy figures glimpsed in peripheral vision, reinforcing the sense that Highway 10 is a corridor where reality and the supernatural collide. Historical incidents along Highway 10 may provide context for these eerie experiences. The road has been the site of numerous accidents and mysterious disappearances over the decades. Some of the ghostly figures seen by motorists are believed to be spirits of travelers who lost their lives on the highway, doomed to wander in search of help or closure. The sudden fogs and engine noises may represent residual energy from violent or traumatic events, replaying in cycles that persist long after the original occurrences. Locals recount tales of families and individuals vanishing without a trace, leaving behind only vehicles parked at rest stops or abandoned along the roadside. Such stories have solidified the highway's reputation as a place of lingering sorrow and spectral activity. Paranormal investigators have taken a keen interest in Highway 10, conducting nighttime explorations with cameras, thermal imaging, and audio recording equipment. Many report capturing unusual phenomena, including shadowy figures darting across the road, orbs of light hovering above the asphalt, and temperature drops of 10 degrees or more within seconds. Some recordings include faint whispers, engine noises with no source, and glimpses of figures reflected in mirrors or headlights. Investigators note that the road seems to respond to human presence, with apparitions and sounds appearing more frequently when someone stops or slows down to observe. Despite extensive documentation, the highway retains an air of unpredictability, making each encounter unique and unnervingly personal. Travelers who drive Highway 10 after dark often share tips learned from experience. Many recommend keeping windows up, driving at moderate speeds, and avoiding stopping in isolated areas unless absolutely necessary. Locals sometimes advise avoiding the highway during certain hours, claiming that ghostly activity is more pronounced between midnight and 3 a.m. when the desert is at its quietest, and the veil between the ordinary and the supernatural seems thinnest. Despite warnings, some drivers are drawn to the road intentionally, intrigued by its paranormal reputation and the opportunity to witness the unexplained firsthand. For these visitors, Highway 10 becomes more than a route. It transforms into a liminal space where the past intersects with the present, and the ordinary is imbued with the uncanny. Highway 10's California desert section is a landscape of extremes. By day, it is a sun-baked stretch of asphalt cutting through arid terrain. By night, it is a haunting corridor where ghostly pedestrians appear in headlights. Sudden fog envelops vehicles, and phantom engine noises evoke unseen dangers. The road is a testament to the lingering presence of history, tragedy, and mystery, and to the human instinct to search for meaning in the unexplainable, whether one believes in ghosts or attributes the experiences to natural phenomena. The highway leaves an impression on all who traverse it after dark, a reminder that in certain places, the line between reality and the unknown is thin, and that some travelers may never truly leave the road behind. Highway 62, stretching across the remote deserts of Nevada, is a long, lonely road where the horizon seems to blur into the sky and time itself feels suspended. By day, it is a typical desert highway, surrounded by rugged terrain, sparse vegetation, and the occasional distant mountain range. By night, however, travelers describe an entirely different experience, a stretch of asphalt where shadows move without source. Lights appear and vanish inexplicably, and disembodied voices call out from the darkness. For decades, Highway 62 has earned a reputation among locals and travelers as a place where the ordinary rules of the road no longer apply, where the desert itself seems to harbor secrets from the past. Many reports begin with shadowy travelers seen along the roadside. Drivers recount glimpsing figures dressed in clothing from decades past, walking along the asphalt as if waiting for a ride or lost in thought. These figures appear suddenly, often illuminated by headlights, for only a few seconds before fading away into the desert night. Some travelers have tried to stop and approach these mysterious pedestrians, only to find that as they neared, the shadows dissolved or melted into the surrounding darkness. A few motorists describe the figures stepping into the road, prompting emergency braking, only for the silhouettes to vanish before impact. The fleeting nature of these apparitions leaves witnesses unnerved, a lingering sense of being watched persisting long after the encounter. In addition to the shadowy travelers, Highway 62 is known for ghostly lights hovering over the asphalt. These lights are often described as small, bright orbs or flickering glows that float along the road without any discernible source. Drivers report the lights starting in erratic patterns, sometimes following vehicles for miles before suddenly vanishing. Others describe them hovering above the desert floor, moving in formations reminiscent of travelers walking in unison. Yet no one is present. The phenomenon is especially intense on stretches of highway where the road bends between hills or climbs steep desert passes, creating the impression that the lights are actively observing or interacting with passing motorists. Locals speculate that these luminous figures may be residual energy from past travelers who disappeared or perished along the highway, eternally retracing their steps in spectral form. Voices calling from empty roads are another unsettling feature of Highway 62. Travelers have reported hearing distant shouting, whispers, or even someone calling their name, seemingly emanating from nowhere. These disembodied voices often coincide with shadowy figures or lights, adding to the sense that the desert is alive with unseen observers. Some motorists describe the voices as warnings, urging them to slow down or turn back, while others hear urgent cries as if from people in distress. Attempts to locate the source invariably lead to empty stretches of desert, abandoned rest stops, and the endless asphalt stretching into darkness. The auditory phenomena can be sudden and disorienting, leaving drivers shaken and uncertain whether what they experienced was real or a trick of the desert night. Historical incidents along Highway 62 may explain some of these eerie occurrences. The road has been the site of numerous accidents, disappearances, and unexplained phenomena over the years. Locals tell stories of travelers who vanished without a trace, leaving vehicles abandoned along the shoulder. Some of the shadowy figures and ghostly lights are believed to be manifestations of these lost travelers, replaying their final moments or eternally walking the road they could not leave behind. Others suggest that Highway 62's isolation amplifies natural desert phenomena, such as sudden fog, mirages, or electrical anomalies, blending them with human perception in ways that create the impression of spectral activity. Paranormal investigators have visited Highway 62 to document the unusual events. Nighttime excursions often include infrared cameras, thermal imaging, and audio recording devices. Many investigators report capturing images of shadowy figures along the road, lights hovering above the asphalt, and fleeting orbs that seem to move at will. Audio recordings sometimes capture whispers, footsteps, or distant calls, even when no human activity is present. Some experts note that the highway appears responsive to human presence, with phenomena intensifying when someone slows down or stops to observe, suggesting that the spirits or energies along Highway 62 are aware of travelers' movements. Regular visitors to the highway often share safety tips learned from experience. Many recommend driving cautiously at night, keeping a steady pace, and avoiding stopping on isolated stretches unless necessary. Locals warn that the most intense activity tends to occur between midnight and 3 a.m., when the desert is quietest and the sky is darkest, allowing shadows and lights to appear most vividly. Despite these warnings, some travelers are drawn intentionally, curious to witness the ghostly occurrences for themselves. For these adventurers, Highway 62 is more than just a route across Nevada. It becomes a liminal space where the past intersects with the present, and the ordinary is infused with the extraordinary. Highway 62's Nevada section is a corridor of mystery and unease. Shadowy travelers appear along the asphalt. Ghostly lights hover and dart unpredictably, and disembodied voices call from nowhere. The road bears witness to the history of accidents and disappearances, a place where the desert seems to preserve memories of those lost. Whether these phenomena are truly supernatural or simply the desert playing tricks on the mind, the experiences of travelers leave a lasting impression. For those who drive it after dark, Highway 62 is not just a highway, it's a haunted passage where reality and the unknown converge. A reminder that some stretches of road hold secrets that may never be fully explained. Highway 95 in California stretches across arid desert landscapes, remote stretches of asphalt, and empty desert plains. By day, it is a straightforward drive through sun-baked terrain, but by night, the highway becomes a place of unnerving encounters. Locals and travelers have long reported paranormal activity along this isolated route, where shadowy figures appear without warning. Phantom vehicles seem to follow or pass them, and the silence of the desert is broken by sounds that have no source. Witnesses often describe seeing phantom motorcyclists. Drivers report spotting figures on motorcycles racing down the highway at impossible speeds, their headlights cutting through the darkness in ways that defy physics. The riders themselves appear indistinct, cloaked in shadows, yet their movements are precise, as if they are bound to the road in a loop of endless travel. Some motorists have attempted to approach these figures, only to find them vanish into thin air as they close in. Others recount feeling a sudden rush of wind, or hearing the roar of an engine that seems far closer than any visible bite, leaving them shaken and uncertain whether what they saw was real. In addition to phantom bikers, shadowy figures are frequently reported standing along the desert edges. These silhouettes often appear at the side of the highway, motionless, observing passing vehicles. Drivers sometimes catch them out of the corner of their eyes, only for the figures to disappear when looked at directly. At times, these shadowy figures are seen near abandoned rest areas, desert washes, or curves where past accidents have occurred. Locals speculate that the apparitions are tied to tragedies that happened on the highway, a replay of events frozen in time. The figures are rarely threatening. Yet their silent presence creates a heavy sense of being watched, unsettling travelers who find themselves alone on the long, empty road. Unexplained vehicle movements are another unsettling phenomenon on Highway 95. Motorists report cars appearing seemingly out of nowhere, sometimes following at a precise distance, sometimes overtaking with no driver visible inside. Other reports involve parked vehicles that shift slightly or roll backward when unattended, as if an invisible hand has nudged them. These incidents are often accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, gusts of wind in the otherwise still desert, and the faint sounds of engines or tires skimming asphalt. Many who have experienced this describe a sense of being herded or guided by unseen forces, an experience that leaves them anxious and hyper-aware of their surroundings. The history of Highway 95 may provide some context for these occurrences. With few landmarks and little traffic, travelers are isolated, and any unusual sound, light, or movement becomes magnified. Locals believe that some of the activity could be residual energy echoes of past tragedies left imprinted on the highway, manifesting as phantom riders, shadowy figures, and vehicles that move without explanation. Several travelers recount experiences in which all three phenomena converge. One night, a driver reported spotting a shadowy figure at the side of the highway while a phantom motorcycle roared past, narrowly missing their car. At the same time, a parked vehicle along the roadside appeared to move slightly, as though nudged by some unseen force. The driver felt a chill sweep through the cabin, and the normally silent desert seemed alive with whispers and distant sounds. Incidents like this underscore the eerie consistency of these reports, suggesting that Highway 95 is more than a simple stretch of road. It is a corridor where the ordinary intersects with the supernatural. Paranormal investigators visiting the area have documented similar activity. Using night vision cameras, EMF detectors, and audio recording equipment, they captured shadowy forms on the side of the highway. Sudden flashes of light consistent with phantom headlights, and the sensation of unseen entities moving nearby. Temperature fluctuations and cold spots were frequently noted, often coinciding with sightings of figures or unexplained vehicle movements. These findings support local claims that Highway 95 is a hotspot for unexplained activity, attracting both skeptics and believers seeking to witness the phenomena firsthand. Travelers are advised to approach Highway 95 with caution, especially after dark. Avoid stopping in isolated areas, remain alert to the surroundings, and keep vehicles well lit. Even those who do not witness phantom riders or shadowy figures often report an uneasy feeling, a sense that the highway is watching and waiting. The combination of desolate terrain, tragic history, and consistent reports of unexplained activity makes this stretch of road one of the most infamous in California for paranormal encounters. Highway 95 is more than a passage through desert expanses. It is a place where the past lingers in the present. Phantom motorcyclists, shadowy figures, and vehicles that move on their own create an atmosphere of tension and mystery. Those who travel it come away with a lasting impression of the unseen forces that seem to inhabit the road, reminding us that even the emptiest stretches of desert may hold secrets that refuse to remain buried. Highway 180 in Arizona stretches across some of the most desolate and sun-scorched landscapes in the state. By day, the road is a long ribbon of asphalt cutting through arid desert, flanked by rugged mesas and scattered cacti. The isolation is stark but bearable, with only the occasional traveler or long-haul trucker punctuating the quiet. However, by night, this stretch of highway transforms into a place of unease, where desert heat gives way to an uncanny chill, and ordinary drivers report encounters that defy explanation. Locals have long whispered about phantom figures disappearing into the sands, strange lights hovering over the road, and echoes that return voices and footsteps that should not exist in such empty terrain. Travelers along Highway 180 often speak first of the figures seen at night. These are not the sort of sightings that come into clear focus. Rather, they appear as dark shapes at the edges of headlights, sometimes standing silently along the shoulder, sometimes moving slowly before vanishing entirely. Witnesses describe these forms as humanoid, but shadowy, lacking discernible features. Some say the figures appear to watch, lingering just long enough to be seen before stepping backward into the desert and disappearing, leaving only disturbed sand as evidence. Attempts to approach them are futile. The closer a driver gets, the more elusive the shape becomes, fading like a mirage into the night. These figures are most often spotted in stretches where the highway cuts through open desert flats, away from towns or roadside lights, places where the silence is absolute and the darkness overwhelming. Phantom lights are another hallmark of Highway 180. Drivers report seeing glimmers along the horizon, lights that seem too small to be distant vehicles, and too erratic to belong to any known source. Some lights hover just above the asphalt, moving slowly as if observing travelers before vanishing suddenly. Others appear in the distance, pulsing or flashing intermittently, and then disappear completely when approached. A few drivers recount stopping in the road, convinced they have stumbled upon a stranded vehicle or a small campsite, only to find nothing but sand and desert scrub. In some instances, lights seem to appear in clusters, forming shapes that resemble moving groups, as if the desert itself is alive with invisible activity. Locals suggest that these lights are spirits of travelers long lost to the desert or residual energy from accidents that have occurred along the road over decades. Strange echoes are another unsettling feature. On Highway 180, the desert amplifies even the smallest sounds. Drivers have reported hearing footsteps on the gravel shoulder when no one is present, or hearing voices calling names in the distance. In several cases, travelers claim to have called out themselves, only to hear their own words echoed back in altered tones, as if the desert is speaking in a voice not its own. Other echoes are more disturbing, distant crashes or low moans, the sound of someone running or struggling across sand dunes, fading before a traveler can investigate. These auditory phenomena are especially intense on nights with little wind, when the air is still and sounds seem to carry farther than they should. Highway 180 also has a history of accidents and disappearances that likely contributes to its eerie reputation. Over the years, drivers have vanished during night travel, vehicles have been found abandoned without explanation, and occasional crashes occur in areas devoid of other traffic. Some locals believe that these tragedies have left an imprint on the highway, and that the phantom figures, lights, and echoes are manifestations of lingering energy tied to past events. In this view, the desert is more than an empty landscape. It is a place where time and memory persist, and where the line between the living and the departed blurs. Those who have spent time investigating Highway 180 at night report that the phenomena are persistent but unpredictable. Paranormal researchers equipped with night vision cameras, thermal imaging, and audio recorders have documented fleeting, shadowy shapes near the road, lights appearing where no vehicles exist, and unexplained changes in temperature. Thermal cameras often show warm patches that cannot be traced to living beings, and audio devices sometimes capture whispers, laughter, or faint mechanical sounds that do not correlate with any nearby source. Investigators also note that the figures and lights seem to react to observers, slowing down, fading, or retreating as people approach, suggesting a consciousness behind the phenomena. For locals and travelers alike, Highway 180 is a place of caution. Nighttime drives are approached with heightened alertness, and many prefer to travel during daylight hours when the desert's illusions are less pronounced. Legends warn of shadowy travelers who disappear into the sands, of lights that follow too closely, and of echoes that mimic voices to lure the unwary off the road. Yet despite or perhaps because of its reputation, some adventurers are drawn to the highway, hoping to glimpse the unexplained, to witness firsthand the mysterious activity that has become part of local lore. The experiences reported along Highway 180 leave lasting impressions. Those who have seen shadowy figures in the desert speak of a chilling awareness, a feeling of being observed long after the encounter. Witnesses to the phantom lights describe a surreal disorientation, a sense that the familiar highway has become a liminal space where ordinary rules no longer apply. and travelers who hear the strange echoes often recall the sounds haunting them in dreams. The voices and footsteps replaying in the quiet of their own homes. Highway 180 in Arizona remains a stretch of road where mystery and reality converge. Shadowy figures fade into the desert sands. Phantom lights appear and vanish without explanation, and echoes return sounds that should not exist. Whether the experiences are manifestations of restless spirits, natural phenomena magnified by the isolation of the desert, or the product of human perception under extreme conditions, the stories endure. For those traveling this desolate highway at night, the desert is never truly empty, and every shadow, every light, and every whisper carries the weight of the unknown. Highway 191 in New Mexico is a long and isolated stretch of road that cuts through deserts, mesas, and sparse towns. By day, it appears unremarkable, a simple highway connecting scattered communities, with the occasional ranch or gas station breaking up the expanse of sand and scrub. However, by night, the highway transforms into a place steeped in unsettling experiences. Travelers who dare to drive its stretches after dark often report encounters that defy explanation. Ghostly figures walking along the roadside, phantom car engines revving in empty lanes, and whispers carried on the wind that seem to issue warnings. Those who have traveled Highway 191 at night often speak first of the figures seen on or near the asphalt. These are shadowy silhouettes that appear along the roadside or sometimes in the median, as if walking with purpose but invisible to anyone who tries to approach. Witnesses describe the figures as vaguely human in shape, yet featureless and dark, fading into the desert night when approached. Some travelers recount seeing a lone figure in vintage clothing, pausing mid-step to look directly at them before slowly vanishing. Others have seen small groups moving in formation, almost as if reenacting moments from decades past. The figures are always silent, but their presence is felt, a sudden chill, a prickling sensation along the spine, a feeling of being observed that persists long after the encounter. Phantom car engines are another phenomenon associated with Highway 191. Drivers report hearing the unmistakable roar of engines behind them, tires on asphalt, and even turn signals blinking in the distance. But when they check the mirrors or pull over, there is nothing. In some cases, motorists say they felt their vehicles being jostled, as though another car had brushed past, only to discover they were alone. The sounds are often consistent with vehicles that should not exist on the highway, vintage cars or trucks from decades past, engines revving and tires squealing without source. Some travelers report seeing headlights appear far behind them, following at high speed, only to vanish abruptly when glanced at directly, leaving the road empty once again. The most unsettling experiences along Highway 191, however, involve voices carried on the wind. Travelers have reported hearing whispers calling out their names or issuing vague warnings. Turn back, don't go, stop, or even unintelligible phrases that send chills down the spine. These voices seem to come from no particular direction, echoing off the mesas and canyon walls, often overlapping with the sound of phantom engines or the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel. Drivers recount feeling an irresistible urge to obey the warnings, a pressure that is more psychological than physical, yet deeply unnerving. Some claim to have heard the voices clearly enough to distinguish tone and emotion, noting fear, urgency, and sometimes sorrow in the disembodied speech. Local legend suggests that Highway 191 is haunted due to its history. The road has been the site of numerous accidents, some of which were fatal, and many travelers who disappeared have never been found. Others believe that the highway passes through areas once traveled by cattle drivers, settlers, and stagecoach travelers, leaving residual energy from lives lost or events long past. These histories, combined with the isolation of the highway and the vast open desert landscape, create an environment where the imagination and reality can blur, giving rise to ghostly sightings and inexplicable phenomena. Several witnesses have recounted entire encounters where multiple phenomena occur simultaneously. One driver described a night when he saw a lone figure walking along the right shoulder, heard the sound of a classic car engine behind him, and felt whispers urging him to slow down. As he pulled over to the side, he saw the figure stop, turn toward him, and vanish into the desert. Moments later, the sound of the phantom car seemed to pass by, yet no vehicle appeared in the mirrors. These overlapping events create a profound sense of unreality, leaving travelers shaken even when they have safely reached their destinations. Paranormal investigators who have visited Highway 191 often note that the phenomena are intermittent but persistent. Night vision cameras and audio recorders have captured shadowy forms along the road that vanish upon approach. Faint engine noises with no source, and voices that do not correspond to any living presence. Temperature fluctuations are also reported, with sudden cold spots appearing on the highway, sometimes accompanied by the feeling of being watched. Investigators suggest that these occurrences may be linked to residual energy from past tragedies or to a concentration of paranormal activity in areas of isolation and historical significance. For those who travel the New Mexico section of Highway 191, the experience is often described as disorienting and unnerving. Many choose to drive in daylight to avoid the night encounters, while others seek the thrill of witnessing the strange and unexplained. Those who have had first-hand experiences often recall them vividly for years, describing shadowy figures, phantom vehicles, and whispered warnings that linger in memory long after leaving the highway. Some locals advise caution, suggesting that nighttime travelers should stay alert and keep moving, as the highway seems to respond to attention and observation in mysterious ways. Highway 191 remains a place where history, isolation, and unexplained activity converge. The shadowy figures walking the roadside, the phantom engines, and the whispers of warning all contribute to a reputation that both terrifies and fascinates. For travelers who venture down this desolate New Mexico road after dark, the ordinary rules of reality may no longer apply. Shadows can move independently of light, voices can issue commands from nowhere, and the hum of engines may be from vehicles that no longer exist. The highway is not merely a route from point A to point B, but a liminal space where the past lingers. The desert observes, and the unexplained can make its presence known to anyone daring enough to drive its stretches at night. Highway 163 in Arizona cuts through desert landscapes, winding canyons, and remote stretches that seem to stretch endlessly under the scorching sun. By day, it is a typical desert highway, offering breathtaking vistas of red rock formations and vast open plains. But by night, the highway transforms into something far more unsettling. Locals and travelers alike report paranormal phenomena that have earned the road a reputation for being haunted. Shadowy figures appear along the curves, mysterious lights move unpredictably across the asphalt, and phantom footsteps seem to follow vehicles along the remote stretches. Witnesses often begin their accounts with the figures seen on the road. These are shadowy silhouettes, vaguely human, sometimes appearing at sharp curves or lonely overlooks. Drivers have described seeing someone standing on the side of the highway, their form dark and featureless, almost blending with the desert night. When approached, the figure disappears into the darkness, leaving the witness questioning whether they ever truly existed. In some cases, multiple figures have been observed, walking in slow, deliberate formation, as if retracing the steps of travelers from decades past. Travelers report that these apparitions rarely react to light or sound. They simply observe and vanish when attention is focused too closely. Another common occurrence along Highway 163 involves mysterious lights. Drivers report orbs or glowing forms that appear suddenly in the middle of the road or above the desert. These lights move unpredictably, sometimes darting across the highway, hovering, or following vehicles for stretches before vanishing completely. Witnesses often describe a sense of unease, as these lights seem almost aware of their presence, tracking their car or hovering just out of reach. Some locals believe these lights are remnants of vehicles involved in past accidents, while others suggest they are entirely supernatural in origin. Spirits trapped between worlds or warnings left by those who never reached their destinations. Phantom footsteps are another unsettling phenomenon reported on Highway 163. Drivers and passengers describe the sound of footsteps echoing alongside their vehicles, crunching gravel or brushing the desert sand. These steps are audible even when the road is empty, and sometimes seem to match the rhythm of a car moving at speed. Several travelers have reported the unnerving sensation of being followed, hearing the footsteps accelerate when they increase their speed and slow when they stop. The sounds can appear on either side of the car, creating the illusion that someone is moving in perfect synchrony with the vehicle. The experience leaves many drivers on edge, forcing them to glance repeatedly at their mirrors or pull over in fear. The origin of these phenomena is often linked to the highway's tragic history. Highway 163 has been the site of numerous accidents over the years, many involving fatalities. Locals recount stories of drivers losing control on the sharp curves, vehicles overturning in remote desert stretches, and fatal collisions that went unnoticed until the morning. These accidents, combined with the isolation of the road, are thought to leave residual energy that manifests in the form of ghostly figures, mysterious lights, and phantom sounds. Some speculate that these occurrences are echoes of those who perished, replaying moments of tragedy in a haunting cycle that continues to the present. Several travelers have reported experiences where multiple phenomena occur simultaneously. One driver recounted a night when she saw a shadowy figure on a curve, heard footsteps alongside her car, and noticed a glowing light moving erratically in the distance. As she approached the curve, the figure vanished, the footsteps faded, and the light disappeared, leaving her alone on the empty highway. These overlapping occurrences amplify the sense of unreality, leaving witnesses shaken and often hesitant to travel the road again. Paranormal investigators visiting Highway 163 often confirm that the road is active with unexplained energy. Using night vision cameras, audio recorders, and electromagnetic field detectors, investigators have captured shadowy forms moving along curves, lights that appear and vanish without source, and whispers that seem to float through the desert air. Sudden temperature drops have also been reported, often accompanying sightings or auditory phenomena, creating a tangible sense of unease. These investigative findings suggest that Highway 163 is more than just a road. It is a liminal space where past tragedies and present reality intersect. Local advice for nighttime travelers is cautious but consistent. Remain alert, drive with care around curves, and be aware of the environment. Many recommend traveling with a companion, keeping headlights on, and avoiding stopping in isolated stretches. Even those who have never witnessed paranormal activity report an awareness of the highway's eerie reputation, a feeling of being watched as they drive along its remote paths. Highway 163 is more than a route through the Arizona desert. It is a corridor of memory, tragedy, and unexplained activity. Shadowy figures, mysterious lights, and phantom footsteps combine to create an atmosphere that is both chilling and fascinating. For those brave enough to drive it at night, the highway offers more than a journey from point A to point B. Offers an encounter with the unexplained. The shadows along the curves, the lights above the asphalt, and the footsteps echoing alongside vehicles remind travelers that the desert holds secrets, and that Highway 163 is a place where the past may never fully let go. Those who travel this haunted stretch of road come away with a heightened awareness of the thin veil between the ordinary and the supernatural. Every curve, every stretch of dark asphalt, and every flicker of light is a reminder that Highway 163 is a place where the tragic, the mysterious, and the unexplainable converge, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who dares to drive its lonely desert path. The highways of the American desert are long, lonely, and full of secrets. These 25 haunted roads remind us that tragedy, spirits, and unexplained phenomena linger where the living fear to tread. From phantom hitchhikers to ghostly vehicles racing alongside, the spirits of the past continue to haunt these empty stretches, where the desert keeps its vigil over the living. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey across America's haunted highways. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to explore more places where history, mystery, and the supernatural collide, and where the desert never truly sleeps.